Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and I welcome you as I call to order the January 2023 special workshop of the Escambia County School Board. The purpose of this workshop is an open discussion on items brought forward by the board and the superintendent. I ask that you silence your cell phones at this time. If you wish to speak at the public forum, you must complete a speaker request form found on the table at the rear of the room and bring it forward to Ms. Buswell at the front table. Our first item is Ferry Pass Middle School Digital Discoveries Academy. Mr. Superintendent, you want to introduce?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have Mr. Harrell, who will come introduce our special group of students today from Ferry Pass Middle School.
As always, thank you all so much for giving our students a chance to come and shine before the board and to give you some experiences, share some of their experiences from our career academies with you. And I don't normally take a lot of time at the lectern, but I do want to say a couple of things here today that these students are going to impress you because last year, their program earned about $170,000 for the school in industry certifications. And yeah, because that money goes right back into the program to support it and give them more chances to do more great things in their classroom. But it doesn't happen without great teachers helping those great students make those things happen. Miss Jackson Hall has the social media strategist certification, and she's the one who teaches that high school level course for the 8th graders. But Miss Allison Cameron is kind of setting records over here, folks. She not only has 8 subject areas on her teaching certificate, and they are serious ones for computer science, mathematics, things like that, business ed, of course. But she has 21 industry certifications that she holds herself. 21. I haven't checked all of the teachers, but I believe that might be a record among our teachers. That is pretty incredible because that shows a commitment to providing opportunities for our students. So as you get a chance to hear what the students have to say today, it's worth also clapping for the efforts of those teachers because they have to put in that effort to give them those opportunities. So thank you so much. I'll turn it over to them.
Good afternoon. I'm Allison Cameron from Ferry Pass Middle School, the Digital Discoveries Academy. I'm the 8th grade coding teacher, and our students are going to present our presentation to you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Trevor Walker, and I'm from 8th grade. I go to Ferry Pass Middle School, and today we are going to be talking about the Digital Discovery Academy and what it is about. Now let's get straight into it. The program's course sequence in each grades are completely different. 6th grade has business keyboarding and orientation to career clusters. 7th grade has orientation to career and tech occupations with career planning. Also, computer business applications with career planning. The 8th grade has coding fundamentals plus computer fundamentals, which is a high school credit class. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paterius Hardy. I'm an 8th grader at Ferry Pass Middle School. The digital tools and industry certifications we pursue are, in the 6th grade, ICT fundamentals, ICT cybersecurity, ICT Word, and ICT spreadsheet. In the 7th grade, ICT computing, ICT multimedia, ICT communications, IC3 digital literacy level 1. In the 8th grade, ICT programming and logic, ICT gaming, and ICT web design. In the 8th grade high school credit class, social media strategist certification. Thank you.
Last year, our academy had 554 students who earned 1,637 certificates, the top middle school in number of digital tool certifications earned. This year, we have 664 students in our academy. In the first semester of the year, we earned 579 certificates. Sixth grade students earned 167 certificates. Seventh grade students earned 157 certificates. And eighth grade students earned 255 certificates. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kirsten Collette. I'm an 8th grade student at Ferry Pass Middle School, and I'm going to be talking about student success. Student success is a student passing the first certification test after doubting themselves and realizing they can do it. When a student does the impossible in their eyes, they have found a new confidence that they will use for other tests, such as high school certifications or even FAST tests. By passing certification tests, they start to excel and ask, what other certifications can I work on? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emery Green, and I'm an 8th grade student at Ferry Pass Middle School. When continuing digital discoveries in high school, these are just a few high school academies you can go to. Gaming at Tate High School, programming at West Florida Tech and Escambia High, web design at West Florida Tech and Escambia High, multimedia or graphic arts at Pine Forest, West Florida Tech, Northview, Escambia, and Tate High Schools, and cybersecurity at Pine Forest High School. Our academy will lead to an academy at every high school in the district. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Ramon McMillan, and I'm an 8th grade student from Ferry Pass Middle School. The Digital Discovery Academy pathways are software engineering, Unity developers, web designers, IT programming, application designers, social media specialists, and graphic designers, and security specialists. System administrators, cybersecurity analysts. We also have administrative assistants and employee relations, to name a few. Now we will be talking about the program we use. Tinker. Tinker is an interactive story-based learning program that allows students to learn to code using blocks and eventually text-based languages. We create our own games and now are learning how to code websites. Tinker was used for a class project. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Samantha Holland, and I'm in the 8th grade at Ferry Pass Middle School. Sphero is an interactive robotic sphere. We practice coding to make the Sphero spin, move, and follow a path. Spheros can broadcast messages and sense one close to another Sphero, and we can program them to go through a maze. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Board members, any comments?
Oh, I am blown away. I am technologically challenged, so I am very impressed with all this. I specifically want to know about the social media strategist curriculum because I think we could use that. There might be an internship available somewhere for somebody like that. So, because all of us use social media and to have that. So I love the fact that you know where you can go, what careers are offered to you, and that you just did an amazing job. Thank you so much for coming and sharing.
Mr. Slate?
I want to thank you just for the fact that as undoubtedly, even as sixth graders, you started formulating an interest in all these different parts of technology. It's an unbelievable array of things that, as I look up on this desk, dais right now, none of us were even given the opportunity, mainly because most of us were still using typewriters when we started. So I appreciate the fact that you ventured out, you took the risk. Recently, someone has kind of become a pseudo member of my family, and they've ventured out in cybersecurity, which maybe you need to get with the aeronautical people and see if you could work with them, since we lost all the flights last night or the night before. But what that person found out, that once they developed their talents and they started using them, they were in the military, and they've gotten out. And since they've gotten out, the job applications, the job opportunities are just incredible. And what really speaks to them is the fact that none of them start in less than 6 figures. So I challenge you to continue. This is the direction that the world seems to be going in, and it's going at it at a rapid pace. So take advantage of the outstanding teaching that you're being afforded at Ferry Pass. Thank you very much for those that are allowing this. Mr. Brummett, you need to sit a little taller, because, you be proud of this. I know you are. But it's outstanding that even at your age, that you're understanding, and face it, you're the leaders. You're the next ones to step forward and take advantage. So congratulations and best of luck in the future.
Mr. Williams.
Yes, and in the spirit of the holiday that's coming up, you exemplified the sayings of Dr. Martin Luther King when he said the function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that's the goal of true education. And I think all of you exemplify that, and congratulations to you, and much success in the future, and keep going. Cybersecurity is an area that I'm very interested in, and it's good to see that we're starting in middle school with that. So great job, teachers and students.
Mr. Adams?
Yeah, congratulations. Good job. I spent 38 years at the Department of Defense, and we over here at Corey Field, we got an IT crypto school, IT warfare. So you're putting things in your toolbox that other companies desperately need, even our own. So you will have no problem getting a job in the future. So I congratulate each one of you for pursuing this field. Congratulations.
I would like to thank you all for being here today, for sharing your experiences and the information about the Academy at Ferry Pass. I thank the teacher for her dedication. Everyone's talked about your future and careers. I want to tell you first, there are always technology positions available within the school district, and you should not forget about the school district once you exit. It could be a great career field. Look to your left, and you'll see a lady there who at some point will probably decide to retire, and one of you may be able to fill that spot. So don't take that out of your mind either. Congratulations to all of you, and thank you for being here today. All right, our first item or next item up here is the calendar. Everyone has their copy of the February and March calendars. And we'll go through that in the January calendar on top. We're in the first week there, then the holiday on Monday. Board meeting Tuesday. The meetings for the Student Conduct Code of Conduct or the R&R book. People who want to be a part of that, those dates and times are set forth. I guess the first meeting here is the 4:30 on the 23rd. We've got the Ben Carson Reading Room on the 24th at Ensley Elementary.
That's the Escambia County Public Education Foundation.
The foundation open house at 12:30 on the 24th. The LDI event on the 26th. We have Ms. Hightower meeting, the governmental prayer meeting on the 28th, which is Saturday. Quarterly meeting with superintendent, with board members on the 30th and the 1st. Second meeting of the student conduct on the 1st. Mr. Adams is in some review on the 2nd of February, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Mic's off. Your mic is off, sir.
He has invited me to come, on his show. He has a little
Okay.
show. So, should be interesting. I always accept
All right.
any offers.
On the 3rd, we have at 5 p.m. the Pensacola Museum of Art Youth Art Exhibition and Show. Yes, ma'am?
I just wanted, I know that everybody probably is aware of it, but on the 14th, there's a parent university at Inslee from 10 to 1.
Well, and there's also at 10, at this coming Saturday.
It is this Saturday.
Myrtle Grove Elementary, this coming Saturday.
It is Myrtle Grove.
Is it Myrtle Grove
Yes.
instead of Inslee? Okay, sorry,
Yeah,
got the
from
wrong school.
Okay,
I knew it was this week.
yeah, at
Okay.
Myrtle Grove. I talked with Ms. Buswell and said, let's put the February and March on here, and that February, we had moved the traditional date for the board meetings and workshops because the superintendent would be out of town. So I want to make sure everybody has those right dates for that. Wow, we got a lot going on here with the planning board. Mr. Adams, the History Fair Awards on the 7th. FSBA Finance, Mr. Williams is going to that. You'll have fun. Well, you will come back very impressed and may be able to speak with Mr. St. Cyr on a little bit on. Yes, Mr. Superintendent.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just before we get much further in February, there are two things. Mr. Marcanio, did we have February 8th as another code of conduct or the Rights and Responsibilities Code of Conduct review?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, February 8th.
4:30 p.m., February 8th, that's correct.
So that was one item. And then, and on that item, you'll notice the term is used as code of conduct. So that's indicative of really trying to fine tune the behavior classroom management aspects. And then we'll have a platform, a web-based platform with all of the policies and the information that families can access. So, and one of our goals is to index that in a user-friendly way. So that's the change there.
Okay. And Mr. Superintendent, just for clarification, all those meetings will be here in room 160?
Correct.
And at
Yes.
4:30, they are open to the public?
Yes,
And participation is encouraged?
absolutely.
So, yeah, I'm saying that for the benefit of the people watching the live stream, or
Yes.
those who may watch it later. So,
I do have one other thing in this early February. We need to have a special meeting for our out-of-field teachers before February 6th.
okay. So, what day would you prefer? The Thursday or Friday before? Thursday? Okay. Thursday, the 2nd, is everyone available?
I may not be. Yeah,
Oh, 7:30.
7 a.m.
7 a.m. I won't be available.
No, 9 o'clock? 9 o'clock on the 2nd? Okay.
Mr. Fetsko, I will actually be out of town. I've got a pre-scheduled vacation during that time. I could see about the possibility of Zooming in, or if you would like, I could see if you prefer to have somebody physically present, I can see if Mr. Hammonds can come.
At this point, Mr. Superintendent, the only item that would be on that would be the out-of-field, approving out-of-field for FTE purposes.
It's correct.
That is correct? Yeah, okay. I believe that is the only item we have.
So if we do that, I don't know that you can zoom in, and if there was a real question, but I don't think that having somebody else available, I think that'd be fine, ma'am.
Okay.
All right? So that's the
If
second.
it's your
at 9.
vacation, it's your vacation.
And that is in room 160.
Correct.
Thank you.
And that, we are available, Mr. McFarland, at that time? All right, thank you. Moving right along in the calendar, then we talked about the art. The Escambia County Council PTA Reflections Art Show at 6 p.m. on the 9th. The Superintendent, you'll be gone for the FADS conference from the 14th to the 17th.
Yes.
So we're not going to meet on the 15th. The 11 p.m. PTA Founders Day on the 17th at 11 a.m., and that's at Bayview, I believe. Okay. So then on the 20th of February, we'll have at 1 p.m. the discussion agenda. Discussion meeting and the agenda will all be done that afternoon. 5:30 p.m. we have the setup for, if we have any, the challenged media. And then on the 21st, the regular February board meeting. On March 3rd, 9:30 a.m., Escambia Westgate, is that the Mardi Gras Parade? Okay. And then Mr. Adams has a planning board meeting. The week of the 13th through the 17th of March is spring break. It's also FSBA Day in the legislature, and new board member academy going on the 14th through the 17th. Once again, because we changed the regular meetings due to the spring break, our discussion and agenda meeting will be at 1 p.m. on the 20th, the 5:30 challenged media if need be, and then the 21st is at 5:30 the regular board meeting for March. Then at the end of the month, on the 30th, is CUSPA conference. Ms. Hightower is attending that. And at 5:30 p.m. on the 30th, Bright Images Art Reception. And I assume that's here at the Hall Center. Typically, that's,
Yeah,
Bright Images would be here.
yeah, probably.
Okay. The only other thing related to calendar and.
Could I ask
Yes,
a
go ahead.
question about the calendar?
Yes, ma'am.
The governmental prayer breakfast, I wanted to know how many of us were planning to attend, because I knew whether we wanted to table or whether people are at tables, or how we should do that, so,
Dave.
yeah.
Mr. Williams is going.
I usually have a gentleman I sit with over here. I go check with him.
Okay. Well, I just wondered if there were, the whole group was going, then we would maybe look at
Well,
the table, but.
I'm going the superintendent and I will go also, so we could have a table for those who.
Well, I think that you have to have 8 sitting at your table, so, but we can plan to try to sit together or not sit together.
All right.
But I just wondered if there were, if everybody needed a seat, then we could do that way.
Okay.
So.
All right, other calendar items that have come up. Mr. St. Cyr's asked me to go through, and because of the trim calendar, he wants us to look at having some dates, if you want to put it in your individual calendars, that these become critical because these are very time sensitive and the dates to some of these are not flexible. Some may be, but at this point, if we could get them on our calendars, better to do it now. The first one would be on July 24th. That's Monday, and that's the school board approves the tentative budget for advertising. And so a meeting is required on the 24th of July. So you have your personal calendars and you want to put something in there at this time. The next required meeting would be on the 1st of August, which is a Tuesday. It has to be at 5:01 p.m. That's the tentative budget and millage hearing. And we're advertising we are doing it to adopt that tentative budget and millage on the 1st of August. Correct, Mr. St. Cyr? All right. Next meeting that's required would be the 8th of September. And that's where we will approve the AFR and cost report. It's suggested that this be a morning meeting such as 8:30 a.m. Okay. And then the last one that Mr. St. Cyr, we have another required meeting for, is the 14th of September. That's a Thursday. Again, that's at 5:01 p.m. That's the final budget hearing where we would move to adopt, and it follows a workshop. So,
I have a question
Yes,
about that. The 14th would be a normal discussion workshop time. We have attached the media challenges to that meeting as well. So I just wanted to be sure everybody was aware that, we have the discussion, we'd have this at 5:01, we'd have the challenge media at 5:30. It can work.
right. It typically, those budget meetings move very smoothly, typically.
Do you not?
Jinx it, right, okay. But we will work with that. 5:01 is a time certain required by statute, correct, Mr. St. Cyr?
It has to be after 5.
So that's why it's at 5:01. But the media, we say 5:30, but if was 5:35, I don't know that would cause a whole lot of concern, would it?
It's advertised.
That would not be a real problem, would it, Ms. Odom? If we were late to begin that challenged media meeting, if it was 5:35 instead of 5:30?
Would it be a problem? I think we could work around it. It would be treated as a time certain item because that's how it's been advertised to the public.
Okay.
So if there are concerns about the budget meeting running long, I would recommend that we think about possibly moving back the start time of the challenged materials item. If we are very confident that we'll be able to get it done in 30 minutes, I think there are some parliamentary procedures that we could do in order to make it all work.
Of course, we might not have any challenge materials that month either.
Correct.
If I were a betting person, I would predict that we will.
Okay. That being said, Mr. St. Cyr, do you remember about how long those previous meetings take?
Generally doesn't take 40 minutes at the most. I mean,
Okay.
if you want to push that other one back till 6, be
Okay.
very safe there.
All right. Everyone all right with that? On the 14th of September, we will move the media meeting to 6 o'clock from 5:30. Ms. Buswell, you have that noted so that you and Ms. Holly can make that change for that notice. Any other calendar questions?
What's the time on July the 24th?
There's not a time given here. We need to set that meeting. So do we want to look at time now?
That meeting is not time specific, but we typically would do that as similar to a regular board meeting, 5:30-ish,
All right. So,
but not required.
Okay. So that there's no other meetings at this time on the 24th. That's a Monday. Anyone have a preferred time to have that meeting? Mr. Slayton, your light's still on?
But
Just asking the question so I put it on our calendar correctly.
About just 5:01.
Okay?
Yeah.
Well, just 5, it doesn't
5
have to be
o'clock.
5:01,
Right.
but we could just say 5 o'clock on that one, okay? It'll be 5,
Okay.
and then that one's 5:01, that's at 8:30, and that's at 5. Okay. Does that wrap things up and take care of what you needed to have done, Mr. St. Cyr? All right, thank you. Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do also have on March 2nd, the Shining Stars Star Awards at 5:30. Location will be Pensacola State College.
Say that again.
March 2nd, 5:30 p.m., the Shining Star Awards, and that's at Pensacola State College.
All right, there is a
Yeah.
conflict at this point, but not for everybody. The Joint Military Council is meeting at 5 o'clock that day at Bailey. So I will be at the Joint Council, and others can attend the Shining Star. Clayton? There you go. All right. Our next is the public forum update. Mr. Superintendent, do you have anything to report?
Nothing to add from the comments that they were shared. There were two, but they were stating their opinions. So.
Okay. Any comments or questions from board members? Seeing none, our first item up for discussion is staff shortages from Ms. Hightower.
Oh, can I,
Oh,
one
I'm sorry.
second? I forgot on the calendar, on the March 24th, I will be gone out of town for about 2 weeks. Okay, so. Yes, that's the trip she planned, so it's our big anniversary, so I think it's 4-0, so, yeah, so anyway, so we're gonna be gone, so Elizabeth's got it on the calendar.
Okay.
Starts on March 24th, yeah. I think you already had it there.
All right, thank you, sir, for letting us know.
Yeah, I think I
And we will-
return on the,
We'll plan appropriately.
you have all those 7:30 meetings, at that time.
We'll have good refreshments and a fun time.
Y'all just have a party.
We'll celebrate your anniversary in your absence. Okay, Ms. Hightower, we'll begin with the staff shortages.
Okay, I know that I've had some conversations with Mr. Leonard, and they've got a presentation ready. I wanted to put this on here because as we move into the budgeting process, and we're thinking about what we need and what staff we're going to need in order to accomplish the goals and the strategic plan that we're working on, I think it's important that we have recognition of what personnel are needed, not just teachers, but all personnel. And I know that you can see everybody is ready to give us a wonderful report, and then I can ask the rest of my questions. And I want to say how much I appreciate each and every one of you, because I really do think that I was having a conversation with someone who called, that's one of our substitute teachers today, and we were talking about, is there something we in the education world need to think about in changing how we hire people? Can we hire somebody to teach a math class all day long or something, just one class before they go to work somewhere else? So, just a thought. And so we're going to listen to these people. They have listened to me.
Yes, ma'am. If the team will
Mr.
come
Leonard.
forward, and we'll let them give their presentation.
Good afternoon, school board representatives. Dr. Smith, Deputy Payne. I will kick off our team under the guidance of the wonderful Mr. Keith Leonard. And so I'm going to give you just an overview on our recruiting efforts. Of course, recruiting never ends. It is continuous. I almost want to say 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It never ends. We continue to currently vet applicants and candidates for current positions, but next month, February 1st, we will start kicking off our 2023-2024 recruiting efforts. And with that being said, some of the ongoing efforts that will continue, I do receive a weekly teacher candidate spreadsheet that is sent directly from the teacher recruiting office from the Florida Department of Education, and it lists candidates who have applied for a certificate, but they've received their initial statement of eligibility. And so I get that, I organize that by counties, and I actually send email blast out to them. That blast includes a link to our school district, of course, the school's website. I also include Just Visit Pensacola, as well as hotel accommodations and different information if they would like to come and visit and where they could stay, as well as our contact information that once they arrive to Pensacola, they may choose to contact us, and we even provide tours if they need. I also have become very active in an online platform called Handshake. Handshake is a candidate matching platform, and to date it has over 12.4 million current and students that are alumni of 90% of the educational institutions. And so what we do on that platform is we actually post our jobs. And it could be the generic teacher job, or it could be specific jobs for specific schools. And that is actually blasted out to all of the students that have registered on that platform. And I have met with them in person when we attend our college recruiting fairs, or I've met with them via Google Meet or Zoom if they would prefer something virtually to answer their questions. And so I get an email when someone clicks that job posting, and it gives me all of their data, and of course I'm emailing right back just to introduce myself and our county and the good things that we have to offer. The other forms of recruiting continue to be on social media platforms, such as through Cox Communications when we have our job fairs, WAR TV, the different platforms such as LinkedIn, Twitter. We do announce our jobs on there as well. Career Source, Escarosa, we attend those job fairs. College and careers fairs, just to kind of update you on that, starting spring of 2022, we actually hired 38 of our college recruits. And this fall, from the December 2022 graduates, we were able to hire 6. 4 additional graduates that just graduated have decided they would like to start out subbing so that they can get acclimated to our various schools. I've also reached out to Principal Adam Lane at Haines City High School because his name and information was mentioned. And we have played telephone tag, but I am very curious to get his insight and tools that he used for the homegrown of employees. So I look forward to speaking with him. We will be hosting an in-house job fair this April, and of course, Ms. Crosstag will start working on that, but that won't be scheduled until after priority transfer. I continue to email applicants in Winocular who are missing certain aspects of their application so that principals are able to view them for interviews. And so I do contact them by email or phone, just say, hey, your application is not able to be viewed because we want to make sure that they are aware what we still need to get them out there. And finally, Mrs. Crosstag and I will be attending the National Educator Shortage Summit next week. So we're looking forward to brainstorming with various representatives across the United States and hoping to be able to share some ideas that we can utilize in our county. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Great job, great job. When we do our in-house job fair, do we invite people who are employees in our district that might want to change jobs, like instead of being a food service, there might be someone who wants to be an educator or maybe a paraprofessional that wants to move on? Do we get those people coming so that we could talk to them about their future?
And so I am fortunate enough that this will be my first experience on this side of the table, whereas I'm generally have been previously a principal at the job fairs. But of course, Kelly can provide specific details. But for what I am aware of course, we use the various platforms to advertise, as well as send information to the applicants who have applied that their interest is. The schools do a good job at advertising that as well. Did I leave anything out? Okay.
And the short answer is yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Simple.
I've got a question before you leave, Ms. Adams. Do we reach back to retirees, looking at the people who have fulfilled that year of retirement, to go back and say, okay, you've had a year off, you're as rested as you're ever going to get, you really miss the people you used to work with, they miss you, how about giving it another go, something along those lines, to go back and look at those retirees who, if they were given a nudge, they might say, hey.
I have not done that formally. I don't believe anybody in our group has done that formally. It's been informal, because you never really know what type of resting period that 12 months has been. But certainly something we can look at. And I'll end up talking to you a little bit later about the retirement language that we're working on as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Adams, one question, and just curious, I think you mentioned 38 college recruits. Where were most of them from?
Troy University, Florida State. I believe we had several from Jacksonville State University, which is in the north end. It's pretty much all around, but the majority of them came from Troy, UWF. We've got a few, I think one from LSU. We've got one from Alabama State, one from Jackson State. It just kind of it's just kind of spread out all over. But Troy, Alabama, University of Alabama, and of course UWF, we do have the majority of candidates that come through from there. So we still continue to concentrate our Mississippi College as well. University of Mississippi
College and Southern Miss. We got
Southern
quite a
Miss.
few from those two.
Absolutely, and I said that because Mississippi College is our first one to recruit. But they, it just depends on what area they're looking. So it's pretty much all over. We concentrate a lot of our efforts in Mississippi, of course, Alabama, parts of Georgia, parts of Louisiana, and of course, Florida.
I've got another thought while you're standing there. It came to me that there's legislation pending or coming up, I believe, that has to do with the state of Florida and kind of having agreements that anybody who would move here from another state, that their certification would be accepted, and it's less cumbersome than it has been in the past. When I moved here from North Carolina, there were courses I had to do and yada yada. But has that legislation passed, or is it just being talked about at this time?
We have reciprocity with a number of states currently, but that legislation is not one that I've heard of. So hopefully it is being discussed.
I did.
I'll ask Jessica. I'll be on the phone with her tomorrow.
There's been talk.
Right.
But that's it.
That's it.
Yes.
Okay. Well, and there again, we have a very good educationally agreeable legislative delegation who may, with some discussion, want to look at that going forward as something too. But along with that, I thought, well, in our partnership with the military, that we might want to have the military, as they're sending out packets of people who are wanting to transfer, to highlight there are openings available in the school district. If your wife or spouse or whoever, significant other, is a teacher or wants to be a teacher, there's jobs here waiting. And, I don't know, just a thought that came to my mind, and I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
with him saying that, they got the PSD out on the basis of personal support departments. Have y'all provided information to them? Because that's where I got my retirement badge. That's where I headed out when I retired from.
Yes, we have. And
okay.
we advertise in what's it called, the Gosport?
Gosport.
Yeah, and we communicate with them. I was talking to Miss Morgan a month and a half ago about trying to get the flight students to perhaps at least be substitutes for us. Yeah. I have talked with 2 individuals out there on the base. I don't know if we've gotten a big increase on those, but we communicate with them.
And a follow-up, And we are using LinkedIn and Twitter and all that to put the, okay. I know I saw some other school districts in Florida fly by me. I hadn't seen ours yet, so that's why I asked.
It's there.
It's there? Okay, okay.
Thank
Probably
you,
got
Ms.
followed.
Adams. Ms. Crosstag.
I am going to talk to you about staffing a little bit, but for just the instructional numbers, so you'll know we have been still hovering around 96 to 97% filled. We filled around 2,750 instructional positions this year and kept those filled. We've hired 453 teachers this year, instructional personnel. So that's pretty high numbers for hiring in a job shortage national problem. So we're really proud of that. I'm slated to begin working on staffing next Monday, which means I go school by school, roster by roster, class load by class load, to see if there are places we need to cut. I actually, because of another situation, started doing that today. Was in Mr. Leonard's office and talking to Mr. Marcanio, going through rosters as well to make sure that we try to, what we always talk about, right size to where our staffing meets the FTE the students coming in the building. Our district staffing team is going to begin evaluating the number of students we actually have on campus, predictions, and how many teachers we need for next year as well. They usually start that in March. We'll have our staffing meeting to finalize positions on April 5th with principals, but finance, budgeting, HR, C&I, and all of that will begin the nitty-gritty early March, late February. I also want to just say that we will have Warrington Middle faculty. They have choice and know where they're going to have a home prior to that staffing meeting on April 5th. So they go first. Warrington Middle does go first. So I just wanted to say that. Have any questions?
Yes, ma'am. At one point, there was a number that was always talked about when we go out and recruit, and maybe I should have asked Ms. Adams, but what is our benefits package estimated value? So when we tell the people, this is the base pay, this is starting, and then there's benefits equal to X amount of dollars. Do you know what that is now?
So we actually give them they can all, even if they just take it and walk away, because the whole point of all that swag is that they'll go home even and read about our package. We really sell START. We really sell our fitness and our health program. We do have it broken down by how much we don't really talk about the packages and what your whole salary is, because it's not going in their pocket. A 20-something doesn't really care about that, but they do care that I'm going to get this benefit from going to the wellness center and getting health check that's going to come off my insurance. So my out-of-pocket is less than $75 or whatever that is. We have that broken down. What brings them back to the table, though, is still START. It is START. 47.5 is going to help a great deal. That helped us last year when you're in Mississippi and Alabama. Georgia still flies high with that salary. So we also, as we should, sell our beautiful city. So.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Crosstag? Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon. After a couple years of a lot of struggle and stress, food service is in a good position. We are 92% staffed. Some of our recruitment efforts include, of course, all the district events, social media, Indeed. If we have schools with particular needs, we contact the school directly and have them post, a specific image to their social media site, and we send flyers home at those specific schools to try to get those parents in that community applying for the positions. Since June, we've hired about 70 employees and retained approximately 60 of those. Our trouble spots right now are assistant managers at some of the schools, and I think that's just with everything going on with bargaining, there's not that incentive to promote, but I think that'll fix itself. We have one critical vacancy at an elementary school that is requiring an area manager to be there daily. But again, we're in good shape. I mean, it's been way worse. Our biggest need now is subs. So when everybody's at work, it's great, but we don't have anyone to send when someone has to call out or goes on vacation. So that's what we're going to be focusing our energy on this semester. Questions?
Any questions? Thank you, Julie.
Good afternoon. I'll start with the negative and then we'll get to the positive. We are 105 drivers short. We have hired 30 since July. We need 5 diesel mechanics. So other than drivers and diesel mechanics, we're in pretty good shape. Our recruiting efforts are, we have the Escambiello Facebook. We do have, we've relied heavily on Indeed. However, since we've stalled at bargaining, it seems that Indeed has completely dried up. We do also recruit at Pensacola State College. We have the Lamar billboards. We have our own banners that are centrally located throughout the district. And you asked about, we are also libraries all over. We drop off the little squeezy buses and pens and flyers. Any job fairs that we hear about, whether it's through the school district, Escarosa, the Veterans Administration, we're everywhere trying to find someone to come to work for us. The one thing that I can say is you had asked about what we're doing as far as our retirees. I've had 4 that retired come back this year, and just as quickly as the year is up, I have it on a calendar. So when they get to 11 months, I call them and say, hey, do you miss me? Because I miss you. And so we are definitely recruiting, and we have one right now that was out 13 months, and she will hopefully start on the bus that the driver's retiring the first week of February. So I am heavily recruiting our retirees because they already love us. So, questions?
Questions? Yeah, Mr. Adams.
Is the 105 short, is that what you would need to do away with the tiered system with elementary schools?
I need 40 drivers to do away with the tier system, and 20 on top of that to make us comfortable.
To be clear, sir, that's to do away with this split elementary tier, not the 3-tier system overall.
Yes. I don't know, there's another way to phrase it though, is there?
2-tier elementary.
2-tier elementary, yeah. Okay.
Ms.
It used to be 3-tier, right? Or was it?
Well, there is a little bit of an adjustment on on one of the times, just because it's hard to get from Molino to Northview and Ernest Ward, and it's also hard to get from Helen Cairo, Escambia, and Perdido area. So those are tweaked somewhat, but not.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Hart, are you aware of where is local training for diesel mechanics? Is there any?
Not that we're aware of. We train our own.
So, all right, so you train in-house, and I don't know how that's advertised, but so then I'll look back to Mr. Harrell and say, do we have a diesel mechanic academy anywhere? Okay. Okay. And if there were such a demand for a group of a cadre of 4 or 5 who wanted, we would be able to get that ramped up at Georgetown. Thank you, sir. So I'm saying that for the general public, or I guess we need to look at the ones who are interested in automotive, our students, our ones who are going to graduate, and let them know if you're liking working with motors and engines, you don't have to go away from school.
That's right.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Harrell, doesn't Mobile have a diesel mechanic school over there? Okay, I think they do. I think they got one, but I would imagine with the economy as it is, diesel mechanics are very much in demand right now for everything.
That is absolutely
Yeah.
the truth.
Yeah. That seems like an opportunity for Escambia County to have its own academy.
Did I miss the good news?
Yeah.
We've hired 30 this year.
Okay.
That's the good news. That's the good news.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms.
All
Hart.
right.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr.
We
Beaver.
have good news.
All right.
During the COVID, we got as high as 59 vacancies. We're currently down to 38, which is 84% staffed. We got $15 an hour increase has helped. That actually equals the benefits to $21.80 per hour. We're doing all the current job fairs. We're starting next week putting out some flyers in the parent pickup lines. Local church groups, through our staff, they're going to their local churches and handing out some flyers and starting a word-of-mouth campaign. Word of mouth has probably benefited us most in anything we've done. Family members and neighbors and cousins. We're setting goals for each one of our schools to recruit people. And once we set a goal that they all agree to, we're asking our local vendors to step up to the plate to offer some monetary rewards, some gift cards, stuff like that. Some schools it's going to take off and really go. Some schools it won't, but everything helps. Our new $15 hiring signs are in. We're going to be getting those out shortly. And we're going to try something I tried in a prior life. We're going to go to the zip codes where most of our people live. Instead of putting out at Walmart and all this, we're going to go to those neighborhoods. That's where the population is, or our clientele. And we're going to be putting signs out like somebody's running for a political office. I'm going to be getting shortly with Mr. Dennis about some 4x8 signs also. College students, this is something we tried years ago, recruiting some of them, starting a team cleaning group with some college students, bringing them into some of our larger campuses like Tate High School, Pensacola High School. We're just super excited about turning this thing around, and we're starting to see the results from all the little things we're doing. We have what we call, which some of you probably have heard about, our rapid response team. If something comes up, a negative or a positive, we're going to try to get that behind us, get involved, and get behind us as soon as possible. The principals, the teachers, they all need help. So, in saying that, we're moving forward, not looking behind us, and any questions?
Hightower.
Great report. And one of the things you said, I remember the principal at Haynes City talking about the family member recruitment. He spent a lot of time talking about, do you have a member of your family who might want to work with us? Kind of thing. Again, putting that on the principals to encourage those people, whether it be teaching or whether custodial or food service. You've got some foodies in your family. We got something for them to do. And so I really appreciated you mentioning the families because, you have medical families, you have law families, and we have education families. And sometimes we forget all of these other people besides our teachers and the families. How many families can those of you talk about that everybody in the family is involved in the education system in some way? And so I think a due diligence in talking to people about encouraging their family members to come work for us is a good thing too.
Well, we have 248 custodians. If half of those bring one person, we're overstaffed. So, and you know, everybody says $15 an hour, but when you put the benefits on top of it, like I said earlier, $21.80. Besides that, this is a good place to work. It's safe. 99% of it for custodians is inside, air conditioned, all the above. But anyway, we're moving on. Hope to have some dynamic results to report back to you in the near future. Any other questions?
Oh, one other thing, when you're talking about your openings, that's just our in-house. It wouldn't include those that are outsourced custodial.
Right. Yes, outsourced, they are 3 custodians short.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Beagle.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr.
I
Adams?
get used to turning the light off and on. Is the custodial contracts performance-based?
There is a performance standard, yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Hi. Good afternoon, board members, Dr. Smith. I will be discussing maintenance, and then I will be touching on the substitute teachers. For maintenance right now, we do have, we currently have about approximately 29 openings. And what we're doing right now to keep up with the workload, because as you know, there is quite a lot of competition out there for many of the jobs that we have in maintenance. So what we're doing right now to keep up with the workload is a lot of the supervisors and managers are working right along with the employees to get things done. And they are allowing overtime for those employees who can, so that we can keep up with the workload. A lot of times when we are advertising for the maintenance, we have to also really highlight our benefits packages, and the time off that we get is pretty significant, because as I was in the military, and we never got 2 weeks off at Christmas, so I value that very much, and I know that a lot of other people do as well, especially when you can be off with the kids. You don't have to get daycare, you don't have to get any of that. That's what we're doing with maintenance. As far as the substitute teachers go, we have actually this year, we've hired 223 substitute teachers. And since June, actually, 223. And then our fill rates are actually steadily increasing. For the 21-22 school year, they were 72% during August to January. So I'm just giving you like the real numbers that we have now. But this school year, it's gone up to 77%. And while you may think that that's not great, it really is fantastic compared to the 2020 school year during the COVID time and right after that. So we've streamlined the process to get them safety trained and get all their paperwork done quicker so we can get them in the classroom sooner. And the increase in pay has also helped out getting more people in. We do get a lot of calls from retirees that once they're done with that year, they want to come back into the classroom. They don't want to do it every day, which is fine, and we'll take it. You know, if you can sub Mondays and Fridays, you'll have a job every single month. So anyway, and that's about it. Do y'all have any questions?
Adams?
Yes, we worked on that fill rate at one time. We did a pilot program where we were going to offer more money for it to go in certain schools that had poor fill rates. And I think we just went ahead and decided to give everybody the same pay increase. Isn't that what happened? So what I'm curious, you said at 72%, Because I'm getting word that we're really having some bad problems in certain schools.
No.
Getting substitutes.
No, she said it was at 72% right now, she was doing teacher assistant specials and teachers, and I thought you said 77%.
It was 77%.
77% is the
This
fill
year.
rate?
For all the schools.
For all the schools.
Combined.
So what I'm wondering is, do we still got schools that are having a really worse time than others still, even though the pay increase?
Not necessarily, well, yes.
Yeah.
Short answer is yes. But even those schools are having a small increase from that time period that we had from the 2020 time period. So it's a smaller increase because we are encouraging folks to go out to different schools in different parts of Pensacola as well. To not just stay in one specific area, but to, broaden their experience going to elementary, middle, and high school.
Okay, I didn't know if we
Look on
needed to
the
look at that,
HR web page, and you go to employment information, and then look at weekly measures, and I think Dr. Smith and Ms. Glasgow will be doing a presentation on it a little bit later. You'll see each week for teacher field absences by substitutes, you'll see that percentage. Today it was 81%.
81% today.
Yeah, so.
But it don't give you individual schools though, right?
No, I'd prefer for you to call me and I can give you a couple of
Okay.
individual
I can
schools.
get you
wherever.
that information.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other board members? Yes, sir.
That $15 an hour represents with benefits $21.80, but also yearly that's $45,518. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm here to discuss or to give the information on the job fairs that we do. For me, I absolutely love holding the job fairs, and we love going out to other ones that they invite us to as well. So in July, we had one at the McDaniel Building in 2021. November, we had one at the Hall Center. Then in June, we had another one at the McDaniel Building. And July and November again, we had them here at the Hall Center. On the January the 24th, we are going to be at Tate High School Career Fair. And the 26th, Escarosa is having a big job fair at the fairgrounds. And then we'll have our spring hiring event that's mostly geared towards teachers. With every ESP job that we post on our website, it's also posted on Indeed. And then we also have a Instagram page and a Facebook page for HR that we do post some of them there, not all of them, because we do, that'd be very time consuming. Our new project that we're really excited about is doing videos. So we're going to alternate between schools and departments and interview people that work for the district already. So when it gets out on social media, we're more personable and people know who works there and who, put a face with the name when they talk to them on the phone. I think it'll be pretty interesting. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So a report that I am helping bring together, a little project. I want to give credit to Mr. Joel Holland because last year this came about with his DODEA grant and looking for a way to find international teachers for the foreign language program. So that really started, and I want to credit him with opening that door. So before Christmas break, we spoke with executive staff about partnering with a company called EPI, and that's Educational Partnerships Incorporated. Across the state, we are seeing more and more partnerships with them. What this does is we bring teachers from other countries to us, almost like instead of a foreign exchange student program, it's a foreign exchange teacher program. We've seen a Ed Week magazine article which featured Polk County schools, and they are in their third or fourth year doing it, and now they have over 200 teachers from international countries working in their schools. So they have definitely had a lot of success with it. In my research, I've spoken with their EPI queen. What it does is it obviously brings cultural enrichment into the schools. These teachers are so incredibly excited to come to America to teach, and they found that the best way to be successful with this program is to just embrace these teachers, have the community and the schools and the retention and everything that this program can bring can be beneficial. We see sometimes teachers will rent their room out to an international teacher. We see churches adopting teachers, all types of partnerships that expand to the community can build this up. So on the EPI pitch, and again, this is just for the open discussion part, they are seeing new hires from over 40 different countries. And when I spoke with Polk, their primary hires come from the Philippines, India, Zimbabwe, and Jamaica. Those are their 4 primary countries. This company, EPI, they're based in North Carolina. And so obviously they started there, then they expanded to South Carolina. They've got partnerships in Virginia, and Florida is their most recent growing state. So the good part is we know the certification works. We know the partnership with FDOE works. We know the vetting process is good for Florida law. So that part is helpful in the sense that our partner counties like Hillsborough, Orange, Dade, Polk are already doing it, and just this morning, Mr. Leonard sent me an email that said Volusia County is now doing it. Yes, and Duval as well. It is rapidly growing across the state. So what the important piece is EPI serves as the J-1 visa sponsor. And so that's the part that we can't do as a public school system. So EPI is the middleman that connects the teachers to our district. So EPI handles the sponsorship, the vetting, the background checking. But once we hire the teacher, they become our employee. They are not a contracted employee, or like we in HR, the ZZ contract. And so they become our employee. They're in Skyward, they get a paycheck, and EPI collects a fee. Now, I've already discussed this fee with Mr. St. Cyr, and so that part has been covered because the exemptions with the EPI fee is, so a starting teacher salary after ratification would be $45,500, right? Which that is happening, but this is not a bargaining update. But we all know that actually costs the district about $60,000 a teacher, right? Because we have FRS, FICA, health insurance, work comp. So FICA, FRS, and health insurance are all exempt for these teachers. We don't have to pay any of those on that visa. So EPI provides a health insurance plan for them. We don't have to do FRS deductions, and they are not quite introduced to our friend FICA. And so because of that, the EPI fee is absorbed almost in that savings. If we only hired 5 to 10 of these teachers, it would end up costing approximately about $2,000 to $3,000 beyond the salary. But the more teachers you hire, the lower that fee gets, and then it naturally just absorbs itself. So it's really not an incredible financial impact in the sense of comparing a new teacher right out of college versus hiring one of these teachers. So at executive staff, when we went through this presentation, we decided, in this first year, we should pilot the program and just limit it instead of saying, hey, principals far and wide, who's interested, that we were gonna stick to IB at PHS and Pine Forest High School, Bellevue Middle, and Sims Elementary. So with those schools keeping it there, those principals would be our testers and to see how this works, and like I said, just pilot the program and create those partnerships to see if it works. Now, the obvious questions that once you really start thinking about it, and I'm seeing the head nods, is where do these folks live? How do they get to work? What do they show up with? Things like that. And those are all questions we're still researching, but we do have a plan. And that's why I came up here with Michelle and all of my team behind me, that that community backing, we know that that's going to come with this partnership, that we know these individuals are going to show up with 2 suitcases and a willingness to teach. We know they're going to be ready to, sponsor clubs, coach teams, and really provide amazing enrichment into our schools. And we just got to make sure that they're taken care of. And I've asked those questions to EPI. I've said, hey, do you guys just make the partnership and go away? And they say, no, we have Department of State standards we have to upkeep. And they have, they didn't call them social workers, but that's almost what it sounded like. People that check in on their standard of living, make sure they have transportation, make sure that they, are in a living environment that is up to standards. So that was something that we found with EPI that I felt comfortable with, and we all did as a team. But we're still researching the contract piece of it. They've sent us a draft one that Ms. Odom is working with, and I know purchasing was still doing some research, but I just wanted to get the topic out there at this discussion workshop and answer questions based on the pitch that I know. But the liaison I've been speaking with is a man in North Carolina who's been very available, helpful. He even offered to Zoom in, and so we figured it was best if I just did this intro pitch, but I definitely have a lot more research that's gone into it that I can share with you. So this time, is there any more surface questions I can answer for anybody?
Adams?
With the other counties that are doing, I know some of the school districts, they're coming up with some housing solutions.
Yes.
In the high cost areas.
Yes.
On their district land, either converting buildings or putting certain housing in. Is some of these that are already doing this process, are they one of those counties that are coming to housing?
Well, the only one I spoke.
That's a big deal.
Right, I know.
Yeah.
And housing, that is where the woman at Polk County said, you can only hire as many as you can find a place to live. Figure that part out first. See if you can find furnished apartment facilities. Because the one thing we do know with these individuals is they're good for a monthly payment. They're going to come in and be on our pay schedule. We can back that up and say, hey, as long as they're working with us, we know they're going to have this income. So at Polk County, they have partners with realtors, property managers, and EPI does, part of their contract, they provide a loan, some seed money for them if they owe a security deposit and things like that. But it would require a little bit of research on our part, because someone in North Carolina helping do the liaison work, they don't know that someone shouldn't live next to Molino Park if they work at Sims Elementary, and so we know that, but that's a piece that we definitely need to research before jumping in.
Yeah, I see that as one of the big things. I know in Tallahassee, with just my son moving over there,
right,
he's paying $1,600 month to month on a little small townhouse.
And
he got a new job over there. It's very expensive with real estate now.
Right. And what was suggested is that during the interview process, you ask, are you willing to have a roommate? And you put people, and that's why I think it's smart to keep people at schools in the same situation, and just hope for, transportation being part of a piece of that too. That the more you can lump people together, the lower the price goes.
And that was one of the things with Mr. Adams bringing that up. I had spoken to some of the EPI people at a conference, and they were saying that often they room together. And so that cuts the cost for them. But it also, I think doing the pilot, it'll help us because we can figure out geographically what would be most convenient for where they would be, to where they're working. And so I'm glad y'all, you sound like you have really looked into this. You've really thought about all of those other things that go into it. We can have them teach here, but we've got to make sure that, just like with the people who were coming to work for us last year that couldn't find a place to live here. It's not just the international folks that have that difficulty. So thank you for all that.
Sure. Any other questions? Thank you for taking the time to listen. Happy to share any other information you need in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity. I know we met together as a team January 6th, last Friday, and just listening to all of them. And I knew it took 30 minutes last Friday, so I figured it'd take about that longer today. But we really appreciate having the opportunity for you to hear from all our division leaders and department leaders on what they're trying to do. And then when you see that strategic plan, you're going to see that our goal is to be 100% staffed, regardless of what division we're talking about. And we won't rest until we do so. So thank you for the time today.
Ms. Hightower.
I want to thank you, Mr. Leonard. I mean, that was an amazing presentation. You covered everything that I was going to ask questions about. I do have one thing. Talked about going to career days at schools. Do we find out when, I mean, do schools still have career days? I mean, that's an opportunity for, I remember being at Sherwood for a reading one day, and one of our locksmith was there to read, and he brought his fun lock, and he taught him how to rekey it. That could have piqued some little third grader to decide that locks are my life.
The first hiring event, or the first college hiring event that I'm going to, is February the 9th, and it's at one of the colleges in Mississippi. And Malia signed me up for the career day. So it's not just a day for educational majors, it's for everybody at that college. So that's who I'll be talking to. And we need to also do that at our high schools. And please remind me, Dr. Smith, when we get to the board presentation this year, when we have our academies, our teacher academies present, that we do present them with their signing letter this year. We meant to do that last year. I simply forgot. We had them here when Aisha brought them. We want to make sure that we go ahead and tell them this year. We're going to, 3.5, 4 years from now, or like in my case, 6 years, whatever it takes you to get through college, you have a job right here. So remind me to do that, and we'll get it done. So thank you again to everybody who presented.
Moving right along then, Ms. Hightower, budget priorities.
I just wanted to start the conversation. I knew that we'd probably be getting this, and thank you all again. Everybody was well prepared. I just wanted to talk, the budget is one of the things that it comes under our purview, and today is not probably the day to talk about it, but just to put it on in our sights that we need to determine, in the absence of a strategic plan, what we see as the most important things with you. I mean, we know that we know what the business of the district is, and we have not always been true to putting our money where it's most needed. And I think that we need to do that due diligence as we go through the budgeting process. What are the programs that are successful? What are the programs that we have been buying and have continued to buy that maybe we don't need anymore because they're not, something else is better? And y'all may be doing that, but we've never had that conversation with. So that was basically I may put this on every month as we talk about the budget priorities once we've figure out how much money we may get. I have been, as a member of the Legislative Committee for Florida School Boards Association, there's some hopefulness with the funding, but there's also a possibility of a different look to the money that we're going to get. So I think that it's going to be essential that we really have some conversations about what is priority 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we can put the money where we need it to go.
Any discussion from other board members or superintendent? All right.
Board Member Hightower, thank you for that, because I agree with you. One of the chief I think results of our strategic plan will be to do that, is to really prioritize what are the pressing points that we need to be funding and putting resource towards. And I think as focused as we can be on that, we need to be. I would tell you, one of the pressing or the just inherent challenges that we have is that our enrollment is declining. And so with that, I find myself now asking the question quite often, that's a great idea, what do we give up to get that? And that's just the reality in which we live in with declining enrollment. So what you just said is really quite essential for us to be focused on and make sure all of our dollars are being spent as best in the most effective way. One of the big changes that's going to happen too for us is our federal relief ESSER dollars in the rest of this year and next year is the time frame when we have those dollars, and that will come to an end. And so we have run some pilot-like types of concepts that have worked well. An example is the Navigator program. Well, that's a lot of money, and when that fund dries up, what do we do with that? And that's just one example. There's many pieces like that. So there'll be some tough moments of wrestling with priorities and budgets, but to your point, it's going to be important that we do that well.
I will comment too along those lines that I know that we need to watch what gets said because we don't bargain here. And so comments and things that I would like to say would have to happen in executive session as to some priorities. The idea of what becomes a priority with staffing is something that is dealt with annually. When the C&I staff and the HR groups all get together and we look at what are the things that need to happen. I go back and historically, there was a time when we were looking at additional guidance counselors at the elementary level and other different positions, and the thing came up that at that time, our greatest need was to have a tech person at each school. And so we had to say, okay, so what do we not have in order to have this? How do we make this happen? And I think that as roles change, as technology has changed, as education has changed, this spring will be a opportune time to look at, are there things that we need to do differently, or ways, the things that we might say, this really is the most advantageous as to getting to the goals that we want to reach. And some things may not be equally as needed at this time. Not that there's not things out there that we have that aren't needed. You know, we do that. But then it gets down to the budget reality. What can you afford? Okay? I'll use it as you need transportation, but does your car need to have the most expensive chrome wheels? Okay? And so that kind of analogy to that. Yes, we need to go and keep this going forward. What are the things that are mission critical? What are the things that are nice to have? What are the things that we can probably do this without? And that's going to be very subjective. Okay? And so those discussions need to happen sooner rather than later in terms of people saying, okay, I go back to the days with the yellow stickies that we had David Langford and how everyone put their priorities in different things, and he said, okay, but you could only have 3. So as a group, how do you come to consensus as what are those 3 mission critical areas? Those type of activities or that type of work may need to occur. And again, that just came to my mind with the priorities and the things. And this will be a time, and as you said, sir, that as ESSER dollars evaporate, there will be changes on how we staff. Moving right along then, Ms. Hightower, Townhalls.
Yes, I was interested in doing some town halls. I know Mr. Adams has done several. I don't know if you've done some. But I was thinking along the lines, but then the mayor's report went out today. And so they just talked with a lot of parents, because my original thought when I put this on here was, having listened to the teachers talking at the conference we went to, and about, having a town hall meeting with teachers to help us understand what is it that we need to do as a board to help them be successful in their classroom. I don't want it to be a gripe session. I want somebody to come and say, because I think it was, Mr. Williams was so eloquent when we had that medium-sized district thing, and one of the teachers said, I need my advisor, my principal, to support me as a teacher. And you were so eloquent in your response to her, because she didn't know you were a principal, but you just come out of the classroom, so to speak. But I think, I know we just did it with the strategic plan, and maybe all of this can be put off a little bit. But I also thought about asking parents, what should we be doing in your school to keep your student in our schools? But I've kind of come around. I talked to Miss Gamble with the County Council PTAs and thought, well, maybe they could sponsor a roundtable with the school board members where she could bring people in, and each one of us could be there, and people could go to each one of us and talk to us about what are their concerns. So that's why I put it on there. But I don't know that you've read I only read the education part of the mayor's report yet, but a couple of the things are so similar to a conversation I had with Dr. Smith. Childcare. If there was some way we could offer childcare to our employees. I ran into a former teacher at one of my schools, and she wanted to come back and teach this year, but she could not find childcare. So she had to stay home. And that's pointed out in the report in so many areas. Their city employees have that same issue, finding childcare. And there's some thoughts in there about partnerships, working with, we have some at our schools, but also opening like rec centers and those kind of things to having childcare opportunities. But again, our part in the school district could be that we're helping provide staffing for child care centers by, being more diligent with our academies and all. And of course, they talked about literacy and VPK and getting the information out about VPK to people, not only through our website, but using city websites, the City of Pensacola websites, to try to help people understand where those opportunities are. And they talked about transportation. So I think it's an opportunity now, kind of segue, that maybe we need to sit down, maybe you, Mr. Superintendent, you probably already met with our new mayor, but, sit down and say, how do we partner? How can we work together? School board, city council, county commission. We all know our literacy. We want to increase our literacy in our community. It does float all boats. It's an economic development tool. If we get everybody educated, so that we create a team, so to speak, and not silos.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. The timing is very interesting, because yesterday actually had a meeting with a number of people, including Bruce Watson with Early Learning, and Matthew Mears, who is the Chancellor over Early Education with Department of Education. And really, we were talking about some of these concepts. Our concern is that we are missing children who would benefit from preschool, VPK, daycare, whatever the form is. We have children who would benefit greatly. Our kindergarten readiness clearly indicates that we need to address this pressing item. One of the topics that also came up, Dr. Laura Colo was in the meeting as well, and we talked about the framework that a school district in Louisiana had, which actually we learned was tied with their city on some of the funding. So there's a host of ideas out there, but it does take a community approach, and it takes a systemic approach. It has to be a system where we're thorough, where we're identifying the children who need to be there, and we're able to connect them with those centers. Transportation is an issue. Voluntary pre-K, our VPK, is funded for a half day. We make it a full day because people are working. They need the full day. Well, that other half of that funding is from Title I dollars. Transportation comes through Title I dollars. So there can be some creative ways. And how do we pull our resources together and really come up with a thorough system that really is able to account for every student and get connection there with these educational opportunities. So, I do believe I have a meeting with the mayor coming up soon, so that'll be a great topic of conversation. I'm excited to hear him voice his thoughts about that. That is exciting to hear that. The other piece too I wanted to comment on is with the town halls. One of the things I was hoping to do was to do a town hall. And what I was thinking, and wanted to share this with you today, if we had a town hall in each of your in your district, at one of our high schools, that we could have seating and availability there. So that's a topic that I would be interested in doing, especially with our strategic plan. My thinking is kind of do an intro with the strategic plan, have time for people to share thoughts, and then even have a mechanism for capturing things electronically, where some people are more comfortable speaking publicly, others aren't, but we want to hear everybody. So I was kind of thinking of that. Was also thinking of doing a teacher meeting before that. Now, I don't know if you all would want to be involved in that or not. That's something to think about, what your preference is there. But I was thinking of doing a teacher town hall, in essence, and then followed up by a resident, a county resident town hall.
I'm going to jump in before you, Ms. Hightower, and Mr. Superintendent. I'm very much on board with that. I think it would be good. I think that connection, the communities to the schools, and the schools to the district, and people thinking the same way and getting information, sharing ideas, is definitely timely, and I think it's a good thing. It builds those relationships, and it there again establishes trust between the community and the school district. So I would encourage us to do that. Ms. Hightower?
I just want to get it on the calendar. So, I mean, are we talking about, because I too was thinking we could tie it to rolling out the strategic plan. Mm-hmm. So when we get to that, we'll figure out, like, are we talking about sometime this spring? Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the only other thing I was going to say is, and it's a negative, and I hate to end with that, is that sitting on the Early Learning Coalition Council, they're suffering from the same shortage of personnel. There are students, there are children who are unserved, both just daycare and VPK and everything else, because there's a shortage of workers to do that there's waiting lists and there's things that need to happen. But until you have the people to be ready to work in that environment, then you just can't serve them. And that's situation that will have to be looked at and some creative thinking go into.
Yes, and one of the concepts that came up and was discussed yesterday was that topic, because you are absolutely correct. And Bruce Watson has a tremendous background and knowledge of what's going on. And there are some waiting lists because of that shortage. And so one of the ideas is, can there be additional funding some way to get salaries up, for employees? You know, and again, that's where it takes a big collective effort, because they're using, the funds are what the funds are, right? So can those be grown somehow? But it's such an important topic, and we saw, just off of COVID, we saw 6%, I believe it was a 6% drop in the kindergarten readiness rate. So, you know, you're talking about something that is so important. Our kindergarten teachers have students of all kinds of different backgrounds, and some have been exposed to certain types of knowledge, others have not. There's just such a wide range, and we really want our students positioned so that a young child doesn't feel like they're behind during their first week of school.
I know that one of the challenges that comes up budgetarily, and like you said, you expressed it, and we've talked a little bit before with the pre-K, is that Title I dollars is being taken from the students who generate that funding in order to do this. Now, those students would be eligible if they were school-aged because of their socioeconomic status and so on, and it's helpful to do that. The state has changed in that, you know, our funding is K-12 funding. And so the idea of using our general revenue dollars for pre-K is frowned upon legislatively, statutorily, however you want to say it. And I talked at the state board meeting in August with the Division of Early Learning Chancellor, the idea that when schools or feeder patterns of schools fall into the turnaround status, the Bureau of School Improvement, they use the funds, what fund source am I trying to, TESA or whatever, UNICIG. And so the UNICIG grants to include funds in there to be able to be that offset with VPK to do even more in those communities where it's even, you know, it's most critical. And he said he'd look into it, but I don't think that it's moved at this point. But, you know, and it was a new idea, and how much traction it would get. But I think that the more we have those discussions with others, that, you know, some of the difficulties that schools have academically start before the child ever reaches the kindergarten classroom. And so whatever we could do through that division, through those resources, through the Early Learning Coalition, through the Head Start, through the Children's Trust, that those initiatives really need to be focused on the communities and the children who are the most in need.
One other piece I'd like to add to in that meeting also, and I'm very thankful for him being there, was our executive director of the Pensacola Chamber of Commerce, Todd Thompson. And again, it's about building the network, and really, I think there's a lot of people who care very much about early education and early learning, and so how can we get a robust community effort moving forward? Mr. Mears, the chancellor, was very excited, very supportive. He was excited to have the conversation and to discuss some ideas, and we'll have a follow-up in February.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
It is pre-K through 12.
I thought the funding was K through 12.
Nope, it's pre-K now. I just looked it up to be sure before
But is it just for
they have pre-K appropriations. I mean, there's
And
a lot
again,
of different committees, but
right.
now it's pre-K appropriations, pre-K through 12, where it used to be kindergarten through 12.
But is the pre-K going to be limited to ESC or other things, or does it open it up to students who would be Early Learning Coalition recipients? You know what I'm saying?
The FEFP is K-12, except for the pre-K handicap. That's what generates FEFP historically, and it's, I don't know of any changes coming on that. There may be, Ms. Hightower, I don't know of any.
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying that they have started talking it like it's pre-K, so.
Well,
Because I think there's a knowledge base in the legislature that it is very important
Right.
to address that VPK, the pre-K initiative. It's not just about kindergarten anymore.
Right. When we run FTE surveys, the survey results are only those which I just spoke of.
Yeah, I know now they are. That's why I was just saying that I noticed that.
It'd be nice to dream. Yes, Mr.
And,
Superintendent.
and Dr. Colo's done a great job. We've added 4 units this year for our VPK, and so and the programs are run very well. She does a great job providing support and oversight there, and so the key is filling those positions too. That is a key piece, which is what our community agencies are facing as well.
Well, I'm going to jump on that and say I too agree with you. Dr. Colo does a great job. This district has benefited from her expertise for a long time, and we're thankful for that. Okay, Townhouse legislative update, Mr. Adams.
Turn that on. Yeah, Keith has gotten some more information I want him to provide to the board on whether we can hire somebody back to drive one of these 105 bus drivers were short, if they want to do a day or two. But Keith, is it okay for him to provide an update? Okay.
I've been talking to Jessica from Rutledge and Cinia, and the latest that I received from her on Tuesday, and I talked to our leadership team yesterday prior to this meeting. They currently have several lobbyist groups that are working with the legislature, and it looks like that they will be trying to mirror the language that they use for law enforcement officers to be able to come back after retirement. Those law enforcement officers were allowed to come back. However, they can only come back as a school resource officer. That was the limitation that they had in their statute. And within the first 6 months, they could be hired as a school resource officer, but they had to forfeit their retirement. The current language for the first 6 months, and the second 6 months, they could get it in any time thereafter. What they're looking at for teachers, and the reason I say teachers is because currently that's what that compromise language says. It says a retired teacher may be reemployed as a substitute or hourly teacher within the 6 months following termination, retirement. The individual may not receive a salary and retirement benefit during the first 6 months. So they would come back during the first 6 months as a teacher. They could receive either the salary or they could receive their retirement, and we would not pay them, but it would be as a sub or an hourly teacher. And then after the first 6 months, they could be the teacher, they could get their salary and their retirement. I'm looking at Ellen, because Ellen's looking at me, how could you have somebody working for you? I don't know the answer to that, so obviously they have more work that they need to do, but that's where they are right now. And that's one of the reasons they'll be talking about, hopefully in committee, and they'll be able to get it right. It's different than what we really, really want. It does at least allow someone to come back and teach, but you heard them say we need 29 maintenance workers, we need 5 diesel mechanics, we need 100 teachers. Heck, at the rate we're going to need other type of positions as well. So Hopefully, they'll continue to look at it. I have not spent a whole lot of time, other than with Jessica, with Ms. Salzman or with Mr. Andrade, but I plan to do so in the next couple of weeks. So thank you, Kevin, for giving me that opportunity.
Yeah. And I will say, I talked to Manny Diaz about this. I talked to Senator Broxton about this. I have talked to, Superintendent was asking me the other day, you can't hardly meet me for 5 minutes without I'm going to ask one of them, what can we do to bring employees back? So, and that's what it's going to take, is that steady deal. When I was at Pensacola State College at that legislative town hall, hey, we got to have people. We got shortages. It's severe. It's not just here in Escambia County. It's all across the state of Florida. It's the country. But so hopefully we'll keep watching this. I'll be driving down to Tallahassee several times this year on my own. My son's there, so I don't, so I will continue to advocate for our needs here in Escambia County. But I did want to cover a couple other things. Still early in the process, only a few bills that are coming out. We won't know which ones that are train bills till later on down the line. But I did want to point out there is a Senate Bill 94 on the partisan election of school board members. It's it'll probably be a companion bill to HB 31 on the House, okay? What I know about it, it has very high level support. So that referendum will probably go to the 2024, right? So some of us may not have to worry about that one. So, but anyway, since that's a discussion issue, I wasn't going to mention this one deal here, but I'm going to briefly mention it because when I was in Salt Lake City, I was present with a high-level discussion out there on literacy, and there was a young lady that had presented, Emily Hanford. She's a journalist, and and what the subject line was, how teaching kids to read went so wrong. Okay, a lot of the high-level people there were very impressed with that presentation. So I'm just going to, and what I'm going to do tomorrow to this evening, I'm going to have Elizabeth send each of you and Mr. McCanio her presentation. They got it on video and the information to it. But I did pick up something else here, and this is the reason why I want to mention it real quick, because and it starts out, Governor DeSantis laying out his education agenda for the upcoming session. Increase in teacher pay. I know they're going to be working on that again. That's going to be something done. And a continual expansion of parental choice. But the next part is the XL Senior Policy Fellow, Dr. Burke, met with Chair of Education Quality Subcommittee, and she's a Republican, Fort Pierce, and regarding the science of reading and harmful 3Qing, that's C-U-E-I-N-G approach to teaching students how to read. Mr. Burke was invited to present the next committee on January 17th. So this is the reason why I mentioned it, because I saw it out there at that conference. I'm seeing it again, and I know there's some pull. And the Foundation for the Florida Future, FFAF, it met with the legislative partners to introduce their 2023 policy agenda, which includes establishing literacy coaches in every elementary and middle school, banning the 3Qing reading instruction model, ensuring all elementary teachers are trained in the science of reading, and providing additional math instruction for struggling students, and establishing dedicated teacher apprenticeship programs, and expanding Florida school choice program. So I'll send you that information because it seems like it's got some movement going on it. We don't really know exactly what the new reading program, literacy program they're putting forth. So I'll send you that information. And that's all I got, unless there's another question.
Seeing none, I'll be interested to read that to find out what they're talking about, the 3Qing and
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
Yes. And I had a senator ask me, so you can guess, do you do it in Escambia County? I thought, no. So, but anyway, so I'm assuming we don't, because Mr. McCanio, he didn't know what 3Qing was.
Yeah, I've not heard that term, but I do know that our specialists and our reading coaches are all well-versed and have been trained on the science of reading.
Okay, good.
Which is what you said the state expects us to be.
Right.
Used for our professional development for teaching. So
Right.
we are doing that, and I had not heard that 3Q term, but I can assure you we attend all of the state training sessions regarding reading instruction as well as math.
Well, Mr. Marcanio, you or Mr. Leonard, I thought that in elementary there was a requirement for reading coursework and training. For if you were elementary ed certified, you had reading as part of the required course of study.
Reading endorsement is a requirement for that add-on endorsement for teachers that are teaching our most struggling students. So we do all of that, and yes, sir.
But I thought if you were in a college of education, you were getting a degree in elementary education, part of your coursework was that you had that training in teaching reading.
It's my understanding that like a graduate from UWF will come out with the reading endorsement as well as ESE certification. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I was too, so I'm a little bit surprised to hear them talking about making that a requirement now, which is already in existence.
Wasn't that at a national meeting that you're talking about that?
National, but there was Florida senior leaders there.
Well,
And-
I think,
And this, we may be okay here.
yeah,
But it may not be another school district. So I think what they're going to be looking at is a state.
well, I also
don't
think
know.
that sometimes, just like Mr. Marcanio didn't recognize it as the way you put it, there are people in our legislature that may not be educators.
Yeah.
And they may not know what they don't know. And so it's upon the school board members anywhere in the state to help them understand. You know, it's like, I remember one year there was a gentleman in the legislature that wanted everyone in the 4th grade to be able to read. Like that was something new.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to bring your attention because we do have a Republican that's put a bill in on it, and I've seen a discussion on it. Sounds like we're okay. So maybe it's some of them South Florida school districts.
They can't be different from us
They
because
can't?
the
Okay,
certification
all right.
is statewide.
Then that's good news.
I have separate certification for North Florida versus South Florida.
Yeah, I don't know. Yes, that's all I want to do because there's heavy hitters that are talking about it. And one of them's like the education commissioner. So, yeah. So,
Okay.
so anyway, I'm done with that.
Is that it for legislative
Yeah.
update? Thank you, sir. Moving right along, update on charter applications, and I guess.
Oh, I got one more.
Community partnership.
Yeah, community
I was
partnership.
skipping that.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, sir, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, the reason why I put this on here, because when you look at CA Weiss and you look at their numbers, and that's over in your district, I believe, Mr. Williams, display down 90%. I mean, when you look at all the numbers that they're providing the navigators. They're providing us the clinic at Pine Forest. And so when I'm looking at this nonprofit, I immediately want to know, why can't we expand this? Okay, why can't we do more? Because I would love to see programs at Bellevue Middle School. That's a feeder to Pine Forest. I know Mr. Williams probably got places, and Mr. Fetsko. And you're right, ESSER funds are going to be dropping off. But why couldn't we put this in as a advocate to the Children's Trust to pick up this cost? Because when you go south of 9 Mile Road, where our at-risk students live in these pockets of poverty and high crime areas, we're in a difficult situation. So the reason I was bringing this up is the navigators, more community partnership, because I talked to Lindsay, and they got $11 million increase they have put in for, but that's the whole state. That would add 8 to 10 more schools. So I was sitting here thinking, well, we got a legislation platform that we voted on. Why don't we have a funding platform we vote on so that Children's Trust or any other group knows these are our critical needs, that we got to get these students that are at risk, that got the achievement gap, low performers. We need this help that once the ESSER dollars go, we don't have the funding to cover it. And so this is the reason why I was bringing it up, because Children's Trust got $10 million in the account right now, projected $100 million in 10 years, and it'd be a darn shame in 10 years that we're sitting with the same issues that we have in certain zip codes when the funding's there. So I would just like to see, and I know we got two that's on that board, for us to advocate, support this nonprofit, other nonprofits that are in there working with these high needs area to get them that funding. The haves are doing pretty good in Escambia County. The have-nots, they are suffering. And that's the reason why I brought it up. I would just like to see, because when you look at the numbers on there, it's incredible. The increase in ELAs, math scores, the solution is sitting right there in front of us. And so you got, I don't know how many low-performing schools that are underneath the state's watch. How many do we have right now? It's a pretty good bunch, I think. Huh?
11.
11. So her funding she's going for, the state's going to just scatter these things across the state, but as you know, when you go to Pacific counties, Escambia County or Hillsborough, Duval, some of these have got these pockets of high poverty and high crime with these students with that big achievement gap coming in, not kindergarten ready, I would just like to see if this board, and it don't have to be done at this time, but, come with some type of platform saying, hey, we need this funded.
Mm-hmm.
We need that funded. And maybe you two are doing that, I don't know. So, and that's what I brought it up.
So I can add a little bit to that.
Okay.
In that, so there's an organization with community partnership schools. And there's a group that manages that. And I've actually had a conversation very similar to what you just shared about how can we expand this concept. And it's expensive. It is expensive. There's a lot of money that goes towards it because the services, as you mentioned, they're difference makers. So we were very excited when Pine Forest became, because they had some more funding, and Pine Forest now is going to be a community partnership school. So that's very exciting, a step in the right direction. But still, to your point, we have got a plethora of schools that would benefit from some of these wraparound services. So, and I will tell you, in my conversation with the leader of that group that manages community partnership schools, what was shared with me is that's a topic that they want to explore. There's not a readily available answer that, okay, we can do this, because you are talking about funding. But I think where you're looking at is alternative sources of funding.
Right.
Which I think that's what would have to happen for a large scale expansion to take place. So I think I think your notion there is on point, where if we replicate that concept, we're going to have to do it either service by service, which wouldn't maybe be the full wraparound services, or we're going to have to get significant increase in funding to do that.
Or pieces of it, just like you did with the Navigator. You got them at what, 34 schools, I believe?
2.
Yes. Okay, so that's a piece of the community partnership that you took to help that. But I'm just saying, we've got this thing that's been approved by the citizens of Escambia County.
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee you, I remember when all that it was being proposed. The concern was these low-performing schools and these low-performing students, and what are we doing to help these students that got an achievement gap? And so I keep hearing you telling me the ESSER dollar is going to end, but I think I don't know if it'll help if this board, supports a letter being sent to the trust or what, but I think we should identify we need these services for these kids. It's really, and we see it from the DOE, from the very top, you need to have a sense of urgency.
Mm-hmm.
These kids are in bad shape. They need these programs. There's a funding source right there. I know David's got a nonprofit too that does work in the community. But I think we need to connect those dots and try to get that funding to bring these programs to these schools that desperately need them. Desperately. And so that was I wanted to bring it up because you two are on that trust. I'm not on there, but I'm seeing a revenue source that can help children that need help right now.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to make sure that Mr. Adams knew that the trust was partnered with Children's Home Society to create the Pine Forest Community.
Clinic, yes.
Just so you know that.
I know that.
But I was going to say to the superintendent, when you're having your conversation with the mayor, and Mr. St. Cyr will probably throw something at me, but you know, if we're looking at community partnerships that have created schools like Weiss and Pine Forest, there's funding for mental health, there's funding for education, there's funding for medical. Is there a way to take funds from other budgets, city council budgets, and these budgets also, along with Children's Home Society, you know, to create these partnerships with the city for our schools within the city, and then maybe partner with the county. I mean, you know, one thing that I've learned from sitting on the Children's Trust that I knew, but it hits you in the face when you're sitting there, is there's a lot of need.
Yes.
And trying to figure out, just like we're going to be having to try to figure out with our budget priorities, you know, what is the most impactful use of the funds you have available. And so, but again, talking about it as a community, you know, and because I saw in the mayor's transition team report that there is an emphasis in there to address early learning and the education, that there may be an opportunity there to get them to also work with us to create these schools of community partnerships. So, because that's the way we as the trust have to do it. We can't, as a school district, put that in front of them because we're not allowed to use those funds. But Children's Home Society can come to us, an outside organization can come to us with, you know, like the Northwest Florida Health Clinic. Those people work together, and then they can come to the trust to say, you know, we want to institute this program at Pine Forest, and we need matching funds. That was done. We gave them matching funds, so they drew money down from other sources. And there's a lot of I won't say there's a lot, but there are opportunities out there, you know, for organizations to match national grants and those things. And so I agree with you. I remember going to, I think I went to Weiss early in their existence as a community partnership, and everybody that was there for that meeting said, well, why aren't we doing this everywhere? It made sense, you know, to get the whole community, because we all know that just educating child is that's not all of it. You've got to deal with so many other aspects of that child's life to make sure that they're going to be successful and have a future story. And so, and what was the I guess it was the University of Central Florida, is that the parent group?
University of Central Florida.
Said, they didn't go into the money part. They said, you know, you can't do it everywhere. But, you know, I think that it's worth a shot if we can figure out how to fund it.
Well, according to Lindsay, we can have programs outside of the University of Central Florida if we wish, okay? So it don't necessarily, we can, just like you did in Navigators, I mean, you did that outside of it. But I hope the two of y'all are advocating also for our critical needs for the school district on there. And I'm assuming you are. So if we got this nonprofit here that's got this great program, the only thing I'm asking is if we can advocate to expand it, your navigators, work with them to do a funding request to the trust, you know, because it's going away. So if it's going away, so that's what I'm trying to ask is to advocate. We got problems. You don't have the funding to fix the low performing schools right now, right?
Well, and I think so. So thus far, I believe the trust has funded Children's Home Society on the one initiative. I think Bruce Watson's group has received some for early learning as well. So, and then there's a large grant process going through now. But I think, to your point, I'll go back to your point, the Navigators is a good example. Those are ways, because those community partnership schools, there is a significant investment that may, but it's to one school, which is great for that one school, but we've got
You get all the
a
most
bunch
kids.
of schools. So, you know, I think the conversation really is an important one, because, and again, I've had the same one. How can we expand this concept? Because it is a difference maker. And the community partnership schools has been around for quite some time. And it seems like recently it's grown a little bit. So, you know, I think there are other sources of revenue. They need to be sustainable sources on annual budgets to keep those going. But it's certainly an important conversation to have, because it offers some good wraparound services.
Well, I heard the last time we didn't have nonprofits. I just saw we have a nonprofit that's actually doing good work. You're getting ready to lose your Navigators, and we've got a lot of low-performance students that need a lot of critical resources of wraparound services.
Yep,
So
they do.
I think the citizens of Escambia County is going to be looking to see what all this money is, if it's actually connecting to these children from wherever part of zip codes they're at, that they're getting assistance. So and I would tell you, 6 years ago, I was up in Richard Corcoran's office at that very top of the building. And I told Mr. Corcoran that if I was king for the day, I would make all 300 low-performing schools in the state of Florida community partnership schools. And that was 6 years ago. So I've been an advocate for that, but certainly for your Navigators. They're doing great work, everything I hear about it. We have a funding source set up here in Escambia County that you can at least ask, or ask them to ask, you know, because I would like to see them carry on with that program, and it'd be a shame for it to stop when we got millions and millions and millions of dollars that would help fund that. So with that, I'm done.
I'm going to ask for some clarification from the superintendent and Ms. Hightower on it. My understanding is that the school district cannot ask the Children's Trust to fund our stuff. That what we have to do is we have to find somebody like Children's Home Society who would go out and say, we'd like the money to be able to provide Navigators to these schools. Okay, so we can't go to the Children's Trust.
I was never talking about that. I was talking
Okay.
about using a nonprofit.
Okay, all right, so that's, okay.
I just want to clarify.
That's all I wanted was clarification on that too, because I was wanting to make sure that I understood that correctly. Using a nonprofit organization, right,
That's already carrying
right,
out,
right.
according to all the data,
Yes, sir,
great stuff for Escambia County School District.
right. Agreed. Okay. Further discussion? Moving along. All right, Mr. Superintendent, I wanted to, if you could give us a little update on the charter application or applications that are in the process.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to have, we're good with Ms. Coots. There she is. Ms. Coots will come share with us about the charters. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We have not received any applications in our office yet for a charter school, but you know that we are operating under the contract that you all approved for Charter Schools USA to do their work, and they are progressing with that. But that's the update.
Okay, all right, and I kind of thought, but somewhere or somehow something was said about discussion came up or comment that at one point, Charter USA from the state board was told that they had to have something finished by the end of January. And so that they are not going to go to the January 18th state board meeting because they said they needed till March. And I guess they have approval from that from the state board, or is that approval through us to the state board, or are they working directly with the state board and directly, and then at the same time with us?
So what they have, of course, is the contract that we approved that started December 1st. So that is what then opened up the door for them to do their work. So right now, they are in a, correct me on, is it listen and gather, listen and grow?
Listen and learn.
Listen and learn, thank you, phase. They're very purposeful about that. They had volunteered to go to the state board. The state board did not call them. The state board has asked me to be there. They had asked, and as they have been working at Warrington, they see that they're doing a lot of listening and learning, and they felt it would be better to do a presentation later than sooner because there's still a lot to be done. They didn't feel like they were ready to do that and had a full assessment. So that process is in place. It is active.
I just, and I'm, part of it is for just clarification and updating to know what is going on and how it's going to go, because the initial statements were made that we needed to have something in October because they were going to be finished with something according to the request from the state board by the end of January. Now that has changed, and it's going into March and or May, that they're going to submit to us by March an application, and then the application approvals and acceptance would be finalized in May. Are those dates accurate in what I've heard, or am I not hearing the right thing about the right stuff?
The January requirement that you're referring to has already been met when you guys voted to approve the educational agreement. Is that
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
We do not know when they're going to submit a charter application. There's not an official deadline for that. The only other deadline we have is approving and submitting an official charter contract, and that's May 1st to the state board.
Okay. So in order for it to go to this May 1st state board, it would have to be on our April agenda. So it would have to come to you all by March or April.
Soon.
Yes, soon.
Yes. And they're very well aware of the
Right.
timeline and what it takes to review the application. And then in order for us to bring the approval or denial to you, but then, of course, the contract would need to come to you in April for approval.
And in meeting and talking with those representatives from Charter USA, they were very forthright, very earnest in their statements regarding their desire to do it and do it the right way and get things submitted. My reason to ask this is, it seemed like at one point we got pressed against an October deadline that, in my opinion, I needed to have information back in August before October. So I don't want to be in the same situation that we get into March and or May and we're still waiting to see something that, you know, that it's April 15th, the application comes in for a decision on May 1st, which is unreasonable. So I'm asking these questions now to know where we are, where they are, so that we don't get in a time crunch or a calendar crunch or caught between something. Thank you. That's the information I was requesting. Anybody else have a question in that regard?
As I looked at the amended turnaround plan, and listening to our staffing presentation, on here it talks about we will assist them with the, what's the term they use? Retrieving evaluation and VAM ratings as requested. Okay. talking about Mr. Fetsko's kind of timeline, because we don't really have a timeline that we know of. And I know they have to get students. They have on their website a way that you can select to go to their school, but we're not listed yet, so. Have we had a discussion within the district as to how all that's going to work together with the shortened timeline, with, assisting them when we're going to have our teachers in place, and hopefully they will stay with us, and then having enrollment and all of those things. How are we? I know Mr. Dennis has got our school attendance zone committee is meeting. When are we expected to have a report on that?
The next meeting is next Thursday, a week from today.
Okay.
And in that meeting, we look to present the first proposed solution for the new Pleasant Grove.
Right.
And that is what the committee's been focusing on so far.
Okay, so you're not, that committee is not looking at all at what the zone for Warrington looks like. It's going to remain the same as it is?
We've had preliminary discussions. We focused on the issue at hand, which was the new school, with everything with Warrington being up in the air. As soon as we resolve Pleasant Grove, we will go through a facilitated discussion on options for Warrington. Hypothetically speaking, if it were to close, what that attendance zone would look like.
Well, I'm thinking that even if it doesn't close, if we're looking at it as a zoned school, we have to know what that zone looks like. And that's why I wanted to make sure, because I am.
Shouldn't change.
What I'm trying to figure out is, when do we communicate to the parents what their options are?
I'm going to jump in to say that if the students are zoned to that school, whether it's a public charter or a traditional public school, that's still the zone that they would attend, and there would be no reason to do anything different with lines.
I just needed to make sure that was where we were.
I couldn't give you any assurance on anything, ma'am.
So I will share, I just looked this up, I will share with you that on January 20th, I have an update from Charter Schools USA on their preliminary work. So I'm hoping to be able to speak about some of their findings and where they're going and some of the components. So that'll be, I think Ms. Coots also has had some communication with them, so the next few weeks are going to be very important.
So then this topic is a little bit premature. You'll have more information in February.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Any other? Thank you. Progress monitoring. Have we completed all of the second round of progress monitoring, or is it still going on, sir?
Mr. Marcano?
So it is still going on. The window closes on the Monday, next Tuesday, the 17th. But we are prepared to share some preliminary information with you. Mr. Hayeswinkle and Mr. Bobbitt are here. But again, it is preliminary. When we looked at the percentage of students having completed testing last week, we still have 50-60% at some levels, because it's particularly in mathematics, some schools that decided to wait until coming back to start that. But Mr. Hayeswinkle can share that with you.
Thank you.
Yes, we are still in PM2, and so we'll be wrapping that up next week. We weren't planning to share any data regarding the results of the window yet, because we're still testing. But I did want to say that we will be back next month with detailed presentation about the results from PM2 and also comparisons with PM1 as we prepare for PM3 in the spring. But I did want to say that we have had positive feedback from the schools as far as the administration of the tests, and that it's gone a lot more smoothly than PM1 at the beginning of the year. But other than that, I can answer any specific questions that you had.
I just was not sure exactly what the time frame was. I didn't know if it ended before the Christmas break and then that information would be available now, or whether it actually went into January and is still going on. So knowing that we'll get a detailed, but I'm feeling that, I'll use a term Mr. Adams used earlier, urgency. The urgency of having that information and being able to do something about it in a very timely way.
So if I could, so again, we will present more, all of the data for you next month in a formal presentation, but in terms of access to the data, keeping in mind that when students test, teachers have pretty immediate access to the results, and so they understand that data is available, and we want them to have the sense of urgency to use the information and the data on how to then adjust instructional strategies to meet each student's needs. But we will bring the presentation to you next month.
Thank you.
So what I mean by that is the superintendent, it will be one of his items
Right.
on this meeting's agenda for next month.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
while they're all up there, I just want to ask this question because I asked Mr. Marcanio the other day. Have we had any word from DOE when graduation rates are going to be released? Usually it's about this time of the year.
Yeah, have you heard anything? I have not heard anything concrete.
I am trying to remember. I believe that we do have some preliminary data on the rate from last year that will count toward the school grade calculation this year. I don't have that with me.
I was just wondering when they're going to release it again.
I had heard something that it was coming soon. I don't know what.
It hadn't
We don't-
been released by
And
DOE.
Yeah, I could not remember, but even if we don't have the official calculation, we usually have our own calculation.
Have your
that
best
is, that
guess.
is pretty close, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Do we want that?
Next month?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for the board,
month?
yes.
Could bring that as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Patty.
All right.
All right, thank you.
And I'm trying to remember what I was going to ask Mr. Marcanio. Yes, when you were talking about from Progress Monitoring 1 to 2, and the teachers have that readily available and they tweak the things, what kind of support are we giving to our teachers in the classroom so that they, we have a number of teachers who are new to the field, and we have some that are with us from outside the education arena, so to speak. So what are we doing to help them be able to recognize this child needs some help here? And
Right. So keeping in mind that it's all a new system, it's a new test and a new platform for looking at those results. But we do training with principals and with assistant principals on how to dive into that data, and we want the again at the elementary level, most schools have that RTI coordinator as well as other staff members that would be able to provide assistance with teachers who need to learn the ins and outs, so to speak, of looking at the data. So, it's a trickle-down type of effect. We don't have the capacity to bring all of our teachers in and have them trained by Mr. Hayeswinkle. So we count on the instructional leaders to help and bring that information and that training back to the schools.
so it's a train the trainer model.
Well, pretty much. Mr. Hayeswinkle, I don't know if you want to add to that, but.
Yes, so we have gone over that extensively, with the Florida reporting system, where they're able to pull their results and look over the data. Now, as far as then how to take that and improve instruction, that wouldn't be my office, but we are providing everything needed to get into those reports and pull all of the data down, yes.
The reason I asked that question is I was having a conversation with a former employee of ours who still works with some of our employees. And one of the comments she made is that one of our biggest issues from the teachers she works with is that they don't feel like they have the knowledge. And thank goodness for the START program. You know, that those people are there, but again, our resources are limited. And so, you know, I didn't know what our expectations were. If somebody has got a classroom of 18 children and 12 of them are performing below in 2 or 3 areas, you know, what kind of resources are available for that teacher to know what are the strategies that are needed to move those kids.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, one of the initiatives that's been in place this year is under Holly Wilkins' team with our students or our schools that are in the turnaround. And we've heard a lot of positive responses from the coaches on that team working, and I've heard it from the principals. And they're hearing it from their teachers about the coaches. So that's a pretty robust aspect of support that's taking place in those schools. So just tip my hat to Holly and her team. They're really into those schools, getting into the details and training. And Holly, I don't know if you want to come give us a quick snapshot of what that focus is for those coaches. What I know at different phases they're working on different things, but it's been important because we do have a lot of teachers who are new to the profession that are in our classrooms.
So first semester, the coaches were focused on building capacity at the school site so that when they make the C and we pull some of our services out, they can still sustain the model that we've put in place. So they've been focused on coaching teachers and planning with teachers and teaching side by side with them to model lessons, working with students. Now that we have the PM2 data, we're shifting our transition to focusing on actually delivering specific needs to students, like delivering services based on their needs, based on the PM2 data. So right now, Jim and I are combing through all the data, and we're breaking down different groups based on like needs. We're assigning either an SDO coach or we're assigning the responsibility to the school, and then the school's telling me how they're going to meet the needs, and we're breaking it down by benchmark of what each group needs. And then we're going to progress monitor with STAR testing once a month to keep those groups fluid to make sure they're in the right group to receive the services that they need based on the data. And from the administrative perspective, first semester, we were focused on helping teachers, the principals become stronger instructional leaders by walking classrooms and giving feedback. Second semester, we're shifting that focus on data, interpreting data, how to analyze the data, and how to make curriculum decisions based on the data in front of them, so they then in turn can continue to help the teachers. But the coaches as well are sitting down with the teachers, looking at the data with them and helping them make instructional decisions at those schools.
Thank you. I'm going to jump onto that for a second, Ms. Hightower, in that making rounding, or whatever you want to call it, visits to schools, it's been my experience when I have gone into classrooms and looked at things, these are the schools that are not the schools who are in turnaround, so they don't have as much support. But internally, what those schools have done is through their internal resources, whether it's the assistant principal, curriculum coordinator, RTI coach, whoever has taken it upon themselves to meet individually, especially with the new teachers, to go through to give them the support they need to help them navigate that application and to be able to use that information. And they've been pretty systematic about it at the schools that I visited. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's doing it that way, but a lot of times what I've seen is, especially at the elementary level, those principals come together and they share best practices, ideas. They call each other. They say, "Hey, what are you doing about it? What can I do? How are you handling it?" And so, if there's somebody that's not getting that kind of support that they might need, you might want to talk with the principal as you're going out and say, "Hey, are you aware that some of your teachers are really needing some extra support, and how would you think about giving it to them?" That's just anecdotal.
I just brought it up because I wanted to be sure that, I know Mr. Marcani and I had talks a long time ago when we talked about curriculum and how, those publishers would come in and do a one-day training, and then we wouldn't see them ever again. And maybe you didn't remember everything that they taught you that first day before school started. So I just I wanted everybody to hear, you know, all of the things that we have in place to support our teachers who are supporting our students, because ultimately we need our students to be successful.
Thank you all. Mr. Superintendent, your weekly measures?
Yes, I have a handout. I think we might be miss a slide or two in there, but Lisa Glasgow and I will present from the podium here. So with our weekly measures, on slide 1, you'll see we address the purpose of the weekly measures, and they're really created to identify those key points of work that were going to be difference makers, that were going to result in student learning. The measures generated were to focus on key work areas and the expectations quantified through the goals associated with each weekly measure. So that's the overall purpose. Embedded in there, you'll see the concepts of monitoring, measuring key components, and expectations that when you monitor things, then they matter. The concept is, you see the first point there, the concept first starts off with what is a measure, and it's a key practice or condition that's going to have impact on the school. It's quantifiable, can be tracked, monitored. They are individually and collectively monitored for efficiency, and that's through each school and each department. So we've got 2 categories that submit measures weekly. And then the tracking enables us to have some feedback and see how we're doing on those key performance indicators. I'm very appreciative of the work Lisa Glasgow has done. She's worked very closely with principals. She's been very accessible by principals who may have questions, just talking about what their measures are, what their goals are. And we've wanted this to be a very fluid system, especially in the beginning, so that there's learning and growth for all of us as we go through this process. And she's done a fantastic job. And I'm going to let her share with you over these next few slides.
All right, the guidelines that were shared with the schools, first, we started off with thinking that they would need 5 measures, and that seemed to be much when I started working with them in helping determine what those measures would be. The district already had in mind that they wanted to have 2 measures that were common, things that we know all schools need to keep that pulse on, attendance being one. To do the job that we have to do, our students need to be in front of us. They need to be in school. So the district wanted to make sure that all schools were keeping that pulse on what it looked like in their individual schools for increasing their attendance at least by 2%. In addition, we wanted to make sure that principals were in those classrooms informing themselves. We know they go in for evaluations, and that's part of what they do, but are they in there enough in more informal drop-ins to where, no one's putting on a horse and pony show, they're not nervous. It's really about that presence of that teacher being part of that classroom or that principal to be able to really get a sense of what goes on a daily basis. So the second district-wide would be that we would want all schools to set an amount of times that they expect to be in those classrooms. And those that count would only include the principal and the assistant principal. Other people can definitely join in those visits, but those 2 were what we wanted to be reported. So So a lot of schools had in mind some things they wanted to do, but we wanted those to be able to be measured in the program that we already had, and that means they needed to be stated in a way that was measurable as an increase. So for example, some schools wanted to decrease office referrals. So I worked with them and provided examples on how we can state those measures in positive ways and put those into a sentence that is measurable. So a lot of examples were shared, templates were shared. A lot of did some Google Meets. I definitely sent out lots of documents and reference materials for them to use. And anybody that individually needed to talk through their ideas, and that was schools and departments, we worked through that. They went ahead and submitted their thoughts, the ones that they wanted, through a Google form. And first thing I would do is make sure that it was stated in a positive way so that we could measure it with the tool that we currently had in place, and that it was again, measurable. Sometimes we have broad goals and we need to focus and drill those down a little more. So really providing a lot of guidance on the front end, but Dr. Smith had a very strict timeline. He wanted to get this up and going as soon as possible. So working within our timeline, having those to where they were sent in, giving feedback, and then getting those in place. They are submitted weekly. We ask that they're submitted on Friday, but those that need time on Monday to compile their data, and some of our departments especially need all the way through Monday for some of the reports that are generated for them. So the IT department pulls that extract to me sometime during the night on Monday. So when I come in on Tuesday morning, it's in my inbox so that I can begin the second part of that, which is compiling the data to present to Dr. Smith. So here's an example of a school. Now schools, we backed off of 5 and told them they only had to have 3, 2 that were district required and 1 that they self-selected. But many had already had that idea of 5 in mind, and they decided they wanted to stay with that. About half of our schools did not limit down to 3 because again, they were seeing the value of this tool. So here's an example of an elementary school. 2 of their measures relate to a program that we have access to district-wide, which is our iReady program. So at this particular school, they want at least 80% of their students scoring in that 70 to 100% pass rate of the lessons they're doing each week. Their attendance goal was to increase 2%. That looked different in every school because some schools had higher attendance rates than others. But if my school had a 96% attendance rate, I would want to achieve 98, or that would be my goal for this year. Schools maybe were down as low as 87, so their goal would be 89. The number of walkthroughs, again, that looks different at each school depending on how many administrators are at each school. Elementary schools often have fewer administrators. Some of our high schools have more, but they also have fewer classes. So that was a self-selected number, and those numbers are typically around the 10 to 15 visits per week. Sometimes those are up higher into 30s and 40s, and our administrators are hitting those targets very consistently. And this school had a third indicator that they wanted to measure with accelerated reader, just making sure that their students were engaging in authentic books and literature to increase their comprehension. So results. So those measures are the ones that were selected, and then the school, the principal puts this in to represent what is happening in their building. So for the iReady goal, they get these off the dashboard of the program. So for that week, we wanted 80%. The actual was 87. That formula is simply the actual divided by the goal to give us an index. So they achieved that goal at 100%. For the ELA portion, their goal, again, being 80% of their students, 76% attained that measure, and that index of that would be 95%. The walkthroughs, at least 10 visits in those classrooms during a week. Actual was 18, and that means they met that goal at 100%. Their attendance goal being 93, their actual was 92, so they were 99% towards that goal. And then accelerated reading, you can see those points. They had that goal of every week increasing, 312, 270 actual, which gave us an index of 86. Those five percentages put together comes up with an overall efficiency score for the indicators that they selected. So each school, once they submit their measures, this report auto-generates for them. They go to a link and they click, and they not only see this for the week, they can see all of their historical data as well. A department example, and you probably can guess which department, but for W-2s, employee participation in the electronic W-2 program option will increase from 31% to 40%. Again, a lot of the departments went straight to efficiency and kind of like that business model. What things can we do better? Because obviously we all are there to support our students and our teachers and the ability for them to teach and students to learn. So anything that we can do at the district level to be more efficient will help with that in the long run. Timesheets, the number of administrators who approve Kronos timesheets each week will increase. Again, just that oversight of our administrators, because all of this needs to be timely, and making sure that administrators are doing their end so that we can get any exceptions cleared up. And then the last one, the payroll and benefits accounting department, I'm kind of telling the department there, will improve Kronos extra pay reporting so that exceptions can be identified and resolved. Again, all about timeliness and efficiency. Results on this one right now as a system, the goal is that 40% of folks would opt in for that electronic W-2, and right now that is at 32%, and so the overall index there is 80% of towards that goal of the 40%. Timesheets, we would want 100% of our administrators approving those. At this particular time of that week, 87%. So our index there is 87%, and then those exceptions in the pay reports, want it to be at 100, 94, and overall index 94%. When you put those three together and divide it by 3, then you get that overall efficiency of 87. So some things that we look at, and when I shared this information with Dr. Smith, and this has been a time where principals are getting comfortable with the process, and just like with Mr. Leonard saying, go to my website and you can see, he was established with that last year. And we're helping schools get very established and comfortable with that this year, and we hope they too will eventually have these measures on their website, shared out with everyone so that stakeholders can see. But with Mr. Leonard looking at this, if we're hitting 100% all the time on every measure, then it's time to think about which measures we want to keep so that we keep that pulse and we don't lose the focus, but what new measures do we want to add in there? Or do we need to increase the goal because we've met that goal consistently? So, Dr. Smith?
So I wanted to share with you what my measures are. The 5 measurable goals I have is 1, school visits. So for this particular week, every week we want to try to be at least 5 schools. This week, I forget, it was one of the weeks in December, 4 I was able to be in, so that was 80%. The daily average attendance rate, that's for the entire district, was at 92.3%, which was an increase. We've been running closer to 91%, so was happy to see the climb for that week. The district efficiency rate, so what Ms. Glasgow just showed you, those examples and their overall efficiency rate, those are all compiled, and so there's one overall district efficiency rate, and for this week it was 92%. Submission rate, there are 76 sets of weekly measures. That's all the schools, and then the departments added together, so that it totals out to 76. We had 75 who met that for 99%. And then the teacher vacancy fill rate. So this one, I will tell you, I struggled with this one because I had a little bit of a different metric. And it was in this category, but I ended up stealing Keith Leonard's metric. And the reason I did is because I just couldn't steer clear of the vacancy, and his was cleaner than mine. His was more on point. And so
I thought I just want to highlight that because it's we can't lose sight of that. It's such an important issue for us. So it was at 96%. So overall efficiency rate was 92%. So that is my set of measures. My goal this spring is to get that up on the website. There's a little bit of tweaking I probably need to do with Liquid Office on that one measure, but once we get that, my hope is shortly in the future here, my weekly measures will be up, posted so all can see. Eventually, we want our schools and departments to follow suit.
Something else in the process of helping the schools get this established, we didn't want this to be something that was going to be very time consuming. And I have worked closely with the IT department. They have been amazing. And then my department, which is evaluation services, on the data compilation portion of that. So the submission, just so you guys know, once they determined their measures, they sent those to me through the Google form. Reworded, worked those that needed to be put in a more measurable way or something that we can be sure that we measured. Helped a lot of the schools create data collection tools for them to be able to have something concrete each week that they referred to when they entered it. But the way it works for them, with our IT department, they imported the measures. And all the principal has to do is they go to a website, and they select their cost center, or they type in their cost center numbers, the 4 digits of their cost center, and their measures are already pre-populated. So they select a drop-down menu, it's written in there word for word, and what they type in is their goal and their actual, and it does everything else for them. So the process is very, very simplified, and that has been an improvement this year. We wanted to make sure that they had flexibility, that when they met a measure or if they saw something that was needed to be changed or something that was more pressing that they needed to be a priority, they have that flexibility to change. They email to me. I simply go in. I've done that recently. We asked them to really kind of look at mid-year, where you are on your measures. Do you need to keep them? Do you need to edit them? Do you need to change them and put something new in place? And several folks did take advantage of that. So they send that wording to me. I go into that portal. IT's given me access to that, and I'm able to put the new wording in, and that's now a drop down, and they can begin to measure that, whatever that new data point is that they want to collect. So with the data compilation, when I get that, I call it the raw data back from all the things that the departments, and like you said, we have 52 schools that submit every week and 26 departments, 24 departments for a total of 76. All of that data comes to me in a raw form through an Excel spreadsheet, and then Charlie Henderson, which works in evaluation services, has really helped make a vision come to reality. So we're able to compile that data for Dr. Smith, and it shows all the schools' measures consolidated, all of their scores, and then we pull out their attendance and weekly walkthroughs, and we even have it to where it will show whether they met their goal or not. So we can look, and for example, at Christmas, we actually, just before Christmas, we were having 31 and 32% of our schools meet their attendance goal. So that was a big increase from where we had been. And then our walkthroughs as well. We also could see slips in attendance, and some of those were our outbreaks of illnesses. Well, if you have a slip in attendance, you also often had a slip in those walkthroughs because principals were in classrooms helping cover, because of sometimes we didn't have the substitutes to cover all classes. Just to let you know, like you've heard about the staffing, many of your departments immediately knew right off that they wanted to measure their fill rates for their jobs. So many of your departments are looking at that on a weekly basis, and that is one of their measures. In addition, it kind of made sense for principals, if they are in classrooms more often, that there's something they're looking for. So a lot of schools, their 3 measures are attendance, how many times they're going to be in classroom, their walk-through goal, and then what are they looking for when they're in that classroom. Sometimes that's routines and procedures. Sometimes it's rigor. We've got a school that they were looking at scaffolding instruction, and they feel like they've really made accomplishments there, so now they're looking at collaboration. They want to see their students working with other students. So a lot of this is starting to go from, I think sometimes we feel like things are, we're just told to do them, to now they're understanding the meaning, and they're starting to value them and tweak them to where they're really making a lot of sense to the school, and they can share that out again to their teachers and eventually to their stakeholders. Ultimately, for our accomplishments, we have on a regular basis, most all of our schools and departments are complying with reporting. Now, when I get that list on Tuesday, anyone that's not on the list, I send them an email as a friendly reminder, hey, your data was not included, please submit that today. That gives me Tuesday to do a reminder and then to pull that individually and put that into Dr. Smith's reports. We do keep an attendance checklist on how many, which schools and departments, so that if there's a need to bring in supervisors to have conversations or level directors in the schools to remind principals, then we do, but that's not something we're having to do on a regular basis at all. So it's very well established. And those improvements, when I came into this position, a lot of principals shared they were frustrated by the reporting portal, and I would hope even Mr. Leonard would say that that's gotten a little bit. He lost a little, didn't lose his historical data, but the look of it changed a little bit. But that process of it being populated in there is really helping to make it a lot more user-friendly. And then being able to take 76 different groups of data and consolidate that into something that's easy to read for Dr. Smith, that's been an accomplishment through evaluation services. Next steps, what I would like to see in talking to Dr. Smith is that these reports now that I share out with level directors on a regular basis for our elementary, middle, and high, so that they can really get a good pulse on what the schools have self-selected. It's been shared with them, but just have more of that communication with the level directors, so that they can make sure that those priorities that the schools have identified as priorities, they too see the value in those. And then even our assistant superintendents for the departments that they oversee. So sharing that data not just with Dr. Smith, but including a larger amount, and then possibly you guys as the board as well. We want to make sure that schools continue to understand that their measures need to be responsive to what they're seeing in the data they're collecting. So it's not a one-time put them in for the year and don't think about it again until next year in terms of changing or editing those measures. And making sure that it starts lining up with our strategic plan. We would love to see that in all of our departments and schools, that a large portion of what they're reporting is directly related back to their school plans and our district plan. And then having it open to all of our stakeholders to be publicized in a way that they can easily access that. And an example of that is what you will see on our human resources page with Mr. Leonard's report. He's been consistent with that. Our IT department does an amazing job of reporting theirs weekly as well. All right, that is the end. So if you have questions, concerns, please share this.
Board members? Mr. Williams?
Yes, I had a couple of questions, and you might have answered and I might have missed it. Who holds those conversations with that admin when they do not meet their goals? Is that the level directors, or meeting with the superintendent, or who?
So right now, we have let them be in charge of that themselves, in the sense of asking them to look at their goals, and if they're not meeting, because they're self-selected goals. Mm-hmm. If they're not, then do we need to adjust the goal? Because they're self-selected, you would think they're picking things that they feel they will be able to achieve. But if it is something like, when you want to go into a classroom and you want to see a certain thing happening and you're not seeing it, that administrator, the leader in him or her, would be, what supports do I have to give to my teachers? So right now, the attendance and walkthroughs, I guess that could be something level directors could really address if those are really out of whack and we feel that they need some guidance with that. But these are really meant for, right now, the principal to be able to make those decisions in terms of how they support their teachers to make sure that data looks the way it needs to.
So they submit the support to you guys, mm-hmm. but then it's up to them to...
Yes, right now, because they're self-selected. And if we eventually extend this out and do want more input from those directors or from our assistant superintendents, basically, the only time a level director right now would have a conversation with them is if they're just not submitting, because we do have that expectation that all schools have these measures. but like I said, that's not been an issue because our schools have really bought in and have been very compliant with their reporting.
So this is not tied into any evaluation of administrator?
No.
Okay. Also, is there any correlation with the school improvement plan that each school writes? Is this extra, or does it?
That's what we were saying. That is a next step that we want to make sure that as we're thinking. So yes, attendance and that being visible. And then actually part of the strategic plan is going to use the data points. I think the business portion of our strategic plan is going to be using this as one of their metrics that they are going to utilize in their measuring of the strategic plan. But what I hope to do in guiding principals next year and departments as they are selecting the measures for next year is for them to first think about what are those priorities in our strategic plan so that they do sort of mirror each other. So strategic plan are often the big picture, and our weekly measures are often going to be those little measurements along the way to get us to those bigger arcing goals.
Okay.
You want to say more?
Anything else? Hightower?
I love it. I can see in the school reports how it will help people see what they view as important to move your students forward. I'm looking at Mr. Leonard's, and so again, when we do town halls, I'm sure it won't be ready, but I think a town hall that helps the public understand what these weekly measures are about and why we're doing them may be helpful. Because at one time we talked about a dashboard. Is that your vision, that eventually there will be a dashboard? Each school will have a dashboard, and we'll be able to track learning gains, et cetera, et cetera.
So the goal with that would be for each school and department to publicize their weekly measures. So that in itself, it wouldn't have additional information. It would just be the weekly report itself.
So because I could see, I'm back to my recruiting, that schools could use that to show how well their students are improving, how many scholarships their students got if they're a high school, how many academies they have, how many certifications they have. I know those are not pieces of what you're looking for, but to me, for the public, and thank you, Mr. Ingram, for being so amazing, the public would love to be able to see a visual representation, let's click on it and see, all right, we had 500 and some odd certifications earned in this academy at Ferry Pass Middle School.
It's a good idea. That would have to be future work to craft that, but that is a good idea.
Most schools have their own website. I'm just trying to figure out if we need that social media strategist person to work on, because I think oftentimes, and Mr. Williams can tell me I'm totally wrong, principals have so much going on, but they miss those big things that are happening at their school where their students are achieving and they're making amazing accomplishments, and we're not putting it where the public can see it. All they can look at is some other website that says this school is a C. And we've got to be sure that they're looking at those things and able to see that when they go to the website. Mr. Lane, and one of the things he said is, I used my website at my high school to make people believe that it would be a fun place to work. And we need to do a better job of, we're a fun group of people to work with.
Yeah. My question is, how are we getting this data back to students and teachers? Again, the attendance rate is a student. And so if the schools aren't sharing that with the students for them to see, hey, my absence is affecting what's happening here at the school, and the iReady data, that's ownership of the students, and that moves based on what they're doing. So I'd like us, if they're not, to be saying, hey, these are our school goals, and the students and teachers and everybody who works here needs to know what we're doing each week. whether there's a little something, a blurb that's set out, whatever, to even do it by classroom then, and say, hey, Mrs. Jones' class, you were 100% attendance, you're going to get that, and that was done by Mr. Lane. You're going to get, this kind of reward. You're getting pizza or something else, or you're getting extra time for recess, what have you, and those incentives. But the students need to have ownership of their data.
Yeah, I think that's a good possibility for this system. In those next steps, when we start publicizing, I think what we're going to find is a high school might communicate it one way, an elementary might do that another way. And we really haven't delved into that with our principals and our department heads at this point. But the next step, one of the next steps again, is to start getting the information out and then start utilizing it on a wider spread basis. Because right now, I think well, I can't speak for every school. Some schools may be doing that already. It may be, we know the principal has the information, but we haven't really pushed that at this point yet.
It goes back, and I'm beating this horse because he's not dead. He may not be moving, but he ain't dead. It goes back to making sure that teachers and students know that the strategic plan is based upon things they do or don't do. And the success is their activities. And it's not measuring what the board does, and it's not measuring what the superintendent so much does, but students and teachers and what's happening in the schools is what the important thing is. And so what is their part in this plan? And they need to realize their role is vital.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it. All right, the last one then,
Okay.
here's the
Thank-
DocuSign pilot implementation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We want to continue today, or do you want to, is it a quick thing for tomorrow?
Terry, what do you think?
I
We-
don't know if it's, we said 2 to 5. If we talking 10 minutes, 15, 20, or 30?
I guess about 15 minutes, but we want you to understand and ask questions about it if you'd like. But it's up to you. We could go in the morning.
Do it in the morning?
We have time in tomorrow's meeting to
Yeah,
do it.
we seem to have a very short agenda this month. I say that with a smile.
Maybe we could start a little earlier so some of our board members would get here timely.
All right, if there's no objection, then we'll delay that till tomorrow. Is there anyone here to speak at public forum? All right, we are adjourned.